budget, like.
All right, Jolie's on his way.
Right.
We're gonna start the meeting now. Thanks for joining us, Brett and Jim. All right, this is a special select board meeting on Saturday, January 25th,
I
2025, yeah, at 1 p.m. Calling to order. Review of agenda for addition, removal, or adjustment. We do not have the, oh, I didn't put it on here. Doesn't matter. I was going to be the minutes, but that's actually going to be for Monday's meeting. Overview of Zoom. Everyone knows that. Public forum, 5 minutes for anything, discuss off item. And Jim, you should be able to unmute if you need to, or Brett, you should be able to unmute if you need to.
And should we turn on the big screen or we can look at budgets?
All right, thumbs up from Brett. Thank you, Brett. On the screen. Item 3, regular business. Number 1.
Is it
Department.
HDMI?
You should be able to just, yeah, click that.
HDMI though.
Yeah.
right?
Let's see if you
Come
can.
on.
There we go. Perfect. All right. Item 1, regular business, budget workshop, budget review for general fund budget, recreation department, police department, fire department, public works department, and other sections if available. Okay, so I'm gonna bring this up on mine.
Which one do you want to do first?
Let's take a look.
Well, Brett's here. Let's do his first. So
Oh,
if
good
he doesn't
idea.
want to have to hang around, he
On
can
a
leave.
Saturday, exactly. Yeah, I give up skiing for this.
We got another thumbs up. We're doing good.
I know. All right, we're doing great so far, everyone. Let's see here. Okay.
Somebody's wants, and
Thank you.
I don't know who that is.
Could be Brian Plant.
That's what I was guessing too. Brian Plant.
He's on the equity committee.
Yeah,
If it is that Brian. Can everyone see that, or is that too small?
it's hard sometimes when it
We
doesn't
can
show
see it.
last names because then you're just guessing.
Okay, this is our summary page. This is what we're looking like so far. So, I mean,
These are.
This is overall numbers.
Overall individual departments with
Correct.
with their totals of everything.
correct. And I checked the sums this morning. So it's, what we're doing is, obviously we explained it before, but NEMRIC is our accounting software. We're pulling data directly from that, exporting it, putting it into Excel, and then creating summing and things like that to rebuild the budget system that we use. But I checked it this morning. These are all accurate. They're summing, which means they're doing the calculations correctly. But it is a manual process that we've put in this, similar to our old system. And so it's like figuring out how to improve that as we move forward for next budgeting years. So what some of the changes this year are breaking out. Sorry, guys. That's okay. We
Brian
just
says, yes, it's Brian Plant.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Brian.
So normally, if you look at past town reports and our budgets, the summary of non-tax revenues is as it is here: general operating fund, public works, and arts and parks and recreation. And that's money brought in other than tax revenue from taxpayers of Bristol. So general operating, it's a couple of different things that add up to 186. Public works, which we'll see later on, is a state aid highway appropriation. And then arts, parks, and rec is their budget in terms of the revenue that comes from their department for all the different programs.
Question.
So, yep.
The actuals are way different than the budget. Is that because of grants?
In terms of,
Actual 2025 you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking in 2025 and 2024. We budgeted 180, 190, and it's 367 and 772. So.
sorry, where are we looking at? Oh,
Right
here.
there,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's probably because of salaries, the way we split out personnel. Before it was
For
included.
previous years.
Okay.
Yes, so that was, and I was gonna get to that. That was one of the changes we did this year, was sort of split out. We'd always had salaries as part of department budgets, and we always would look at the bottom line of that. What we've done this year to make things easier to understand was to create a personnel, essentially a salary personnel section that's unique to itself. We can still run reports from NEMRIC that has a department that shows the full picture, but for this budgeting cycle, because we were trying to make things less complicated, everything is together. And the reason that was done was because previously certain positions like the town administrator or the clerk had very small percentages split out between different departments, which made things very complicated. And so working with NEMRIC, their suggestion was to just bring everything together so you don't have to do that, because we would split things out like the salary, but we also split out the health insurance and
insurance,
split out the
workers'
FICA
comp,
Med,
FICA,
which
yeah.
made it very complicated.
So if
So,
a formula was off, everything was messed up.
yes,
I'm
exactly.
glad you think it made it things easier, but for me, it made it harder.
Okay,
Cause I can't look at one department and say, Eric, you're way overspending.
right.
Eric or Rack, you're way overspending. When we knew all the salaries, everything, and I get part of it.
Yeah.
That Mike, Nemrick didn't want, okay, we used to have 2% to water,
Yes.
2% to sewer. I get that. part.
Yeah.
That made it easier this way.
Yeah.
But I would like to see at least know, okay, Rack, what did you spend total salaries and
Sure.
expenses?
And we can
Public
definitely do
Works
that.
and those
It,
types.
it wasn't part of this just because we were rebuilding so much.
Right.
But definitely in the future, we can. We can set up ways to be able to run reports once we get this sort of finalized, to be able to, as we work on budgeting, hopefully in November, we can put those pieces together and have a separate, so instead of it being these calculations summing up in one of these tabs here, we could create one that's everything together. So we can definitely do that. We haven't lost the ability. It was just for ease of my and Chris and Sharon's sake, having all personnel together as one and working on it, it was just much easier to do it that way as we rebuilt this process. I know it doesn't give, it produces a different picture, but I also think it's very beneficial to us
To
because
know
we
what
can,
your total labor.
that's
line
right, because we've
Right.
never really had
Does
that
that
before.
work?
We never broke it out. It was always by department, so you wouldn't get the idea of like, oh, it's all the people that run the town and run the programs and run everything. This is how much they're worth. This is how much, they're compensated for.
So could the layperson at town meeting look at that and it says personnel expenses up 14.87%? Can they
Correct.
say, can they literally say, you guys spent 14.8% more on?
Well, there's
wages
an
this year?"
explanation for that, Joel.
Right, no.
No, the explanation is simple. There's 2 new positions. in
Correct, and that's the explanation.
Right,
But that's what Jolie's saying. He said,
Yeah.
we'll be able to explain why.
Right.
It's up by
And if you
14.
do your personnel tab, it breaks out each one of the.
correct.
Breaks out your departments better.
Yeah. So it breaks out in terms of
So is that
DPW.
grants and, or the
Yes.
2 new positions are grants and.
Right.
Correct.
Community resource.
So essentially, we had 1 year of ARPA funding that was supplying the salary or the amount for the grant administrator. She's done a full year now, and so now that's included in. And then we've got also the community resource specialist. Now, I know we're supplementing her salary with ARPA as well, but eventually it'll run out because of the timing. And so
Right.
that's what we're putting in here.
Yeah.
And it
it's-
also includes
Mhm.
raises and things like
Right.
that,
Includes
depending
extra
on what we
money
want
for
to do.
the administrator's position.
And
Exactly,
And it's not
yes.
bad to have your personnel costs go up, but I think you do want to explain why they're going up.
So this here gives you just what you want, Joel. You add that 289
Right.
to highway.
Mhm.
And you'll have your number.
Yeah, like this and this would be, and so it's a matter of putting in, I hadn't had time to do that in terms of, I can definitely do it. And so when we looked at Public Works, it's just a matter of figuring out when it's summing up what I'm putting in the summary that doesn't confuse it. So that I just hadn't had a time to sort of put that together. I do think it's nice though, if you jump to, let's say, the Public Works Department budget, is that when you look at this bottom line, and it's a 6% increase, that's everything excluding personnel. And so I think we've also it's been harder for us to see that picture of like, what does it actually cost outside of our employees to run the department? So I do think it's useful to sort of split it out.
Okay.
So, yeah, so here's our summary. So again, as I said, non-taxes were always designed, always set up like this in the town report in terms of our budgeting. The new one, we've got a couple new ones here in terms of expenditures. We would combine general operating and fire would be as one. And we would have separate ones, I think, for maybe Public Works was in there or arts. We had combined. So I split them out because we were doing this sort of doing these breakdowns. So we've got our personnel, which is new. General is here, and then we've got sort of separate ones for the larger departments. Police is in here because they have their own separate district. And then we've got voted appropriations was in general. So you can have those separate. Right. So it's interesting to sort of, as you build this picture, to be able to see what percentage or what size of our budget is the appropriation. So I'm going to do some pie charts because it actually that format lends itself to this to see like, wow, a 35% of our budget is personnel, and the next largest are the appropriations. And the appropriations aren't just civil or civic organizations. They are
Town stuff
capital,
too,
yeah,
right.
our capital fund, so.
Yep.
So we've got that, and then our total amounts down here is obviously these amounts minus the additional revenue that's brought in from other areas. And this is our final cost here in terms of all these different areas. So as we jump in, we can go into our revenues and we can see these revenues on top of taxes for the general fund. You know, we don't know, we can guesstimate what our property taxes are going to be because we kind of create that by building this budget, but we also set the tax rate afterwards. And so it's not a precise calculation. And usually we don't, some towns put a number in here, which is their guess of that year.
Right.
You know, we have the actuals pulled from NEMIC directly. So we know exactly how much was brought in for the 24 budget and the 25 budget. So we could put something in there.
I think you could at least put last year's grand list number, you know, what we raised.
Right. So you could, there are ways to sort of calculate if we wanted to put a number in there.
The 1.6%
Right.
in his budget
Correct.
does not
Correct.
include wages, right?
That's right. So we've got our taxes revenue or interest or various sort of payments that we receive from other programs, licenses, fees and fines, reimbursements from library, from other different things, giving us, this is our 186,930 outside of all the taxes. That's for the general. The PWD, so we're doing Public Works Department because everything else is department at the end.
Mhm.
So PWD or PW. We've got a total of 115, which is the state aid highway amount.
Okay.
And again, that's a rough guesstimate looking at what we previously received. And then we've got the recreation.
Look how fast their revenue's growing. That's great.
Right. Yeah, and recreation, I know, Chris, you've been working with Meredith sort of on their budget and how over the last 5 or 6 years, it's increased a tremendous amount with all the programs that they're doing.
Yeah.
And theirs is really. So you see how there's $143,000 last year?
Yeah,
Actual,
we had that discussion.
Yeah.
right, and speaking with Nemrick too, that leave this, it's gonna be an odd 2 years, last year's and this year's actuals. We should book revenue when it comes in the door, don't book revenue for program. We take in the revenue for July program.
Yeah.
Book it now.
Right.
Don't hold it, because what happened, we were holding, then hopefully we moved all the right amounts over, and honestly, the last couple of years,
That
I
does
don't
make
think
sense.
anything.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
So.
So what,
it's gonna be 2
So
years
if anyone
long.
asks about that, we'll just say it's a weird one. Look at all the
Right,
rest.
it
Right.
essentially, it's like 40,000 from this field
Right.
really should sit in this,
that field,
Right.
yeah.
and which brings it up to what we're seeing in terms of what our budgeted was. So that's why that has that jump.
It's
not
all
that
in
there-
the positive area, though, so I don't think we're
Yes,
gonna get as many
exactly. Yeah.
questions as if it were spending.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Five Town Rise was a new one that sort of got included. We hadn't budgeted for that before. It was sort of a new program that came together.
That's the
Um,
bike, right?
That's correct. And so this is how much they brought in 24. And we don't have an actual yet for 25, but we're thinking, talking to Meredith, she felt that different organizations that support that group will have been donating money and giving money.
That's what I was gonna, their donations.
Correct.
Their
Yeah. So that would go in here.
And then we also, parents pay, they,
For the
they,
camps.
yeah, it's kind of like a donation though. They,
Yeah.
they suggest it.
So we've got our recreation revenues, everything that was in here in terms of town appropriations, which is towns that are outside. And the rental fees, and then we've got teen club revenues from various,
So that 30,000, Chris, in Pottery Studio, is that kind of the same way? Was there revenues that should have been, that's in there that should be in,
Other
like the
fields.
actuals for?
No, but she
2024.
has spring programs coming up.
yeah,
Okay.
I think it's just
Okay.
popularity.
Okay,
She's absolutely booked solid. There are more adults that are doing it.
well, she
So I-
started those adult programs, which is,
So
That's
that's,
great,
that's one of the
yeah.
big things where it
Yeah.
was, we're budgeting this, but really they're bringing in a lot more. And
Yeah.
and of course, we're adjusting for that. And then Bristol Youth Sports, that has a new line now in terms of some of the money that's come in terms of actuals was just money that came in as we absorbed the program. And then we're looking at budgeting for that going ahead in terms of what might be brought in. So that's that. The yellow in here, it's still ones that we're still finalizing, but they're very small numbers. And so it's not going to affect the overall at very much at all. And again, it's a lot of these are just sort of either renamings or consolidation that needs to be unconsolidated a little bit to match what we had before. It was a little bit too much consolidation for some of them.
So for listers, the mileage is going way up, but the professional fees are going down.
Yeah,
Is that good? I mean, wouldn't we rather? see
Well, we
that?
had hired some independent person to help them out, and they probably just aren't using them as much.
they're done,
Okay.
his use is over.
Mhm.
So they want to tweak some, and they may need to bring in a consultant here and there. The
Okay,
mileage went up because they're actually going out and doing
Travel,
work, and they're
yeah.
actually tracking their mileage.
Right. Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, before we were sort of, that wasn't happening
Right.
for some things. And now we're making
Yeah,
sure.
it just,
Kinda
caught-
like Eden.
it just caught my
Eden
eye
is a
because they're big percentages. So.
Mhm.
And then, okay. And what's happening at Howden Hall with the heating fuel? Is it,
In terms of the drop, you mean? I mean, this is because it's probably pre-buys.
Yeah. we
And
bought
certain
pre-buy.
things haven't
Okay.
gone
I
through
bet
yet.
that's not pre-buy for heating fuel.
No,
it's not.
We don't pre,
How-
but it probably, they might have filled it on June 30th.
Oh, right, it's always
Filled
the,
it twice.
yes,
Yeah, how long is All-Star, they're not like, that's not a pre-buy.
Okay.
Right,
That's
they
a
don't do
day-to-day
pre-buy.
Okay.
as needed.
Mhm.
The numbers are up, talking with rec, because that building's being used a lot.
oh, it is?
Ah.
I mean,
Okay.
Elder Eagles is in there
Right.
every week,
Oh,
you
okay,
got
I thought
other
they were
stuff.
upstairs.
but it's the same heating.
Oh, okay.
Howden Hall is up, no, they meet over Howden Hall. quite
They
often.
do,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
So the building's being used more, so you're gonna see the electricity lines up as well. Because one of the heat sources over there, they did install a heat pump,
Mm,
and they also have a dehumidifier that runs almost nonstop down in the basement now.
yeah,
Um,
well, it's okay if it's going up because of use. That's great. that
Yeah.
People are using it.
yeah, it wasn't, I mean, while we have the space, obviously, Historical Society is on that first floor.
Right,
There is that meeting area downstairs, but it didn't receive much use. I
Right.
mean, then there was pandemic and stuff, so not a lot of people wanted to be in the basement space, but I think now.
Is the Historical Society only still in half of the upstairs? Cause I know we had a couple of meetings over there when something was going on here.
They're in both halves.
They are on
Yeah.
both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
But
do,
the
they
main
actually
hall
do
is
something almost every
accessible, I
month.
believe.
Right, yeah,
They
you
use
can,
the
you can
west
use the
half.
space, but you're around the Historical Society collection.
Yeah,
in
that hasn't
there.
changed.
Yeah.
I think that's actually where the Elder Eagles are meeting, is up in that upper.
It's a nice,
Yeah, the 4-H
And then
is the
what's the
meeting. room
advertising budget for
Where are
the
you looking down?
administrative offices, number 42?
For news, like our
Like our
job
jobs for the
ads.
7
Oh,
days and
okay.
things
Yeah.
like that.
It's not cheap.
yeah, we're doing more of that,
Yeah.
and so
And
that
it's
was,
not cheap anyway.
yeah.
Well, and we have to, like, warnings and hearings and
For
all
the,
that
like-
stuff have to be advertised.
Yeah, for
as
the
well.
regulations. and-
So there's two lines of advertising, they just need to be combined
Yeah.
into one.
And that's why we're at zero here.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're leaving these in so we know to combine, and then we're hiding sort of for the
Okay,
final
that
one.
makes more sense. Okay,
And some of these that were admin, these have been absorbed into a single line item for the entire sort of.
Tire
contract.
removal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Again,
that
an
was
old-
up
an old-
on,
an old
that
hot
was up
holdover
on, I
from,
know, yeah.
Previous ones. So a lot of these will be hidden. When we do a final one for the town report, they'll be hidden.
and for Holly Hall, the electricity's up for the, is it the same reason, just more usage or?
And electricity is more expensive. at the
Okay.
moment.
So a couple of things that we've moved around in terms of professional services, different organizations that we belong to,
Mhm.
that we pay a certain fee each year.
County tax, have we got that? Is that an accurate number? I know
Is it
every
up?
year
Yeah.
that's the
They,
number.
yeah, we get surprised.
That was the number Sharon had.
Yeah.
They provided.
They
to
must
us.
have given her that number then.
I believe
Okay.
they provided that to her.
I mean, you can see what it was.
Wow.
In terms of our, but I know.
Can we
What
verify
did we
that?
get for that?
Can we verify
What did they
that?
give
That's the
us?
sheriffs and the court.
Oh,
It's a
no,
six-
we get nothing really for it. We have to pay.
$6,000 increase over
I know. That was the
You know
number
what
that
went
Sharon put in. but we can-
23, 24 to 24,
Yeah.
25 went up $1,000,
Yeah.
$1,500.
Yeah, I remember the one year
I think
it
we
went
ought to
up.
At least verify
We-
that.
Sure.
It really.
We
stuck
had
out.
budgeted what we thought it was gonna be based on the prior year and it went up like 4 or 5 grand and we're like,
No.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the ones, it's tough when you get that updated amount.
Okay, and animal control, I do want to talk about that later as a budget item. to
Okay, go
change
back up
that.
here in a minute.
Yep.
The public office officials liability insurance, we've already paid out 22 grand.
It's highlighted because we need to confirm that.
Okay,
That's why it's highlighted.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, my question is okay, if we already paid 22, our budgeted amount is not enough.
we also shouldn't be paying that. So big
17,000 was inadvertently billed to that line.
Okay.
So the actual is,
Yeah.
should be.
5 then? Should it be 5?
The actual's around 5 grand right now, 5 to 6,000.
Of what we've
Okay.
actually spent, okay.
Halfway through
What
the-
you spent.
But where did the 17 go? Some other line or?
It's other insurance, so we've got other insurance.
Oh,
that are way
okay,
underspent
other
on the actual.
insurance.
Yeah.
Part of this too is like with the NEMRIC system, talking to Chris about this, is that it's not something where when Chris or Sharon pays a bill, it's immediately obvious what.
What it goes to.
Yes, and so it could have been set up years ago, and you're just, paying this each year, and until it's caught, when you run reports like this and you start to see a number that's like, why is that way up? And you dig into it, and then you realize, like, we found out there was one that, had been miscoded just by 1 digit, and for a few years, it's the same thing. It's a small amount that was going to that, but it's not really obvious when you're doing payroll or
Mhm.
paying things out.
It's like
So-
that 22,000, that was the check to VLCT.
Yeah,
But those numbers should have been spread out more, and they weren't, it was all lumped into one payment.
Mhm.
Or one, it was billed to one line item instead of 3 or 4.
The miscellaneous expense, you got that?
again, we're highlighting to be able to sort of see. So we're budgeting in terms of what we did.
Was that the 10K we gave him for the
Yes.
Extra for the
extra?
elevator?
Yeah, you got about $12,000 in extras that you gave them,
Yeah,
and you have to recognize it somewhere.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
That's where I went to now.
But here again, when you get all to the bottom, that reflects to be raised by taxes. The 10 grand was ARPA funding, so it doesn't be raised.
That's your actual.
It's in
number.
the
yeah, so it'll be
Yes.
actual, so it won't
The
compare
budget
the-
number is 1,700.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we don't,
I don't follow.
That's what we paid,
Right, we paid
and it
that,
came out of ARPA. It's
Yeah.
not,
but it's not budgeted, so it doesn't go with the 10%.
it doesn't go
Correct.
with what our increase is, correct?
so one of the
Okay.
things you could do is sort of after the fact, after you've reached, you're in July of next year, is to run a report, is to compare budgeted to actuals,
Exactly.
which we haven't done in the past. I mean, we look to it historically when we then get to the next round of budgeting, but that's something I
It's kind of
report.
late at that point.
Well,
late, right?
but it's also interesting to sort of be able to see. So you see big jumps and then you figure out why, like, these particular items needed to be coded to some line and they were. And so it's an abnormal coding for that, or an abnormal amount of money that would go to that. Generally, large sums like this don't happen. But also for these particular ones, it was money that came from another source as opposed to being tax revenue.
Right. Okay.
Conservation Commission asked, for some reason, they had 300 for a while. I don't know when it got switched to 2. That actually isn't enough to cover some of their fees, so it was 300.
I always thought it was 3.
Yeah,
So-
and energy has always been one. I bumped it to 3 just so those 2 committees could have a small budget. It's a tiny amount to actually use, and we can see it, and also let them know that they do have a budget they could spend if they need to. And so now we're into here.
Okay,
So.
go back up, the tree planting, I thought that was under
Eric.
Eric's.
So we gotta figure out what this is a holdover from our previous budgets, and it's a matter, we have a few of these lines.
Mhm.
And so it's a combination of, like, there's a tree planting, which you'll see in rec, which is for parks and things like
Right.
that, but it's something we need to work on still, like, do we just have a single line? Because some of them, it's a line where we've received grants and we're using that money, but that grant money can only be used in the village
Right.
area, but we want to be able to accommodate tree planting or removal or something. So it's something where we have multiple lines that we need to look at. It's definitely something we could highlight now and look into and just confirm with other areas.
Well, yeah,
If we're duplicating, because that could be 5, that doesn't necessarily have to be there.
yeah, I was just thinking, because I know
Well, there's no
usually,
actuals.
No, I know. So it's budgeted, but then we haven't been using it. So, is it being used somewhere else? So that could be,
Is it tree
What-
planting and cutting?
I don't know.
so my
Or-
thinking,
I was thinking they were in the same line.
Yeah. And it's always been there. I don't know if it was under, if town committees was the heading before, but it's definitely in past budgets.
We,
and
I
it's not
thought we
something
had
we're
taken
spending.
that out of there, but
Yeah.
thinking, I'm just trying to think, we have, our tree warden. And they're working with the grants
Yeah.
for the plants. I mean, why can't we just leave that in their purview, so to speak?
Right, they need to use.
Because I know in Eric's, he usually uses his mostly for cutting and trimming,
Yeah.
Right.
not,
Yeah,
Plants.
not.
so that's probably
planting.
what it was. It was an actual, do we put in a planting line to actually replace trees? But then we've been lucky to get multiple grants, and we're applying for more grants to do that because there have been programs to do that.
I think that was left in there if we have a match a grant, we have to match a grant,
Ah,
we have some
okay.
money
Mm.
to
What,
match it.
what
Okay.
about when we had the, what you call bore committee?
Oh, the
Ash
ash.
board.
Ash borer
Yeah.
committee, did we put money in there when we had that
It's been
committee to
longer
do
than
that?
hasn't it? It's,
I don't remember.
Michelle on that one, but I thought it was, we left that there, if we ever had to match
Such a
it,
grant.
you know, a tree grant of 50,000, we had match 10%.
Yeah, that's good. I made a note of that. Thank you.
Mhm. That may be, I don't know.
Okay.
All right, you had questions about,
No, I just think
Okay.
we should come back to that
okay,
at some point.
okay. Yeah, oh, I see, it's a larger discussion.
Mhm.
Yeah, so essentially this line, and we're gonna rename a couple of these because we've got a dog officer. This line matches what the police department's
Charges.
Okay.
Mhm.
amount
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Previously, for some reason, we had the dog pound in there, and what we're gonna do with the dog pound, since it's already a fund or an account in there, we're gonna rename that animal housing, and that's essentially gonna be our homeward bound costs will go in there.
But doesn't,
It's been confusing because you can see this has been a budgeted for like 14, and then we had it as 14 previously. Chris and I were sort of digging deeper into this and trying to figure out what is this 11? And so it's we think it's a combination of the dog officer line from the police department as well as homeward bound and other costs.
so is
lumped
homeward
into
bound,
one.
that $1,000 homeward bound, is that the contract we have with them? Is it?
We need to figure out. We put 1,000 in just as
Because
like
it used
a-
to be like $600.
Yeah, that's why it's
Yeah.
600 over there.
Yeah.
now.
So we're gonna look at that and
24.
just see, just because these numbers don't quite mix, so we're gonna work that out. We think
Yeah.
that's fairly accurate.
That's probably
to what it might
close.
be.
I
So
mean,
it's
they
splitting
keep
it out.
changing it, so.
Yeah. And then before, our dog officer line at 14 did not match what the police
Right.
had
Yeah.
as 7 and 9 and now 9, 5, 40. So now-
Don't tell Bruce.
He already knows, unfortunately. He's like, if you would like to put more in there, so we'll find the balance. of
Yeah.
it. Street lights, obviously. Town traffic control, which is a police line. Again, this is under public safety, so
Yeah.
2150. That ties in with the 2150 here, his town
that's what
contract.
that's what the town pays the district.
Correct.
He's used about half of it already this year.
Yeah. And then we've got the non-district services. Now, again, this was a line that wasn't really matching. But talking to Bruce, because we talked to him on Friday when we discussed his budget, we were working on the personnel side of things. The non-district services, we've upped, and it's the reason this is highlighted is that we've updated this. And speaking with him, he felt that the hourly cost, how it was calculated previously for these numbers here, was far below what it actually is to cost out for those services. It's like the hourly rate is the way that it was calculated, the hourly rate was very low, and it's nowhere near what his actual costs are. And these are costs for the police district contract, with the non-district.
Right.
So essentially with the town. So
If the state police call him and they go
You have to
out,
go out,
or
yes.
if I have an
Yes.
accident and I call him and he comes out and the
yes.
state police aren't dispatched.
So really what this was, and this was, I think it's a holdover probably from a few treasurers ago.
So the $10,000 came when we switched, that's what we were paying the
Paying the
sheriff's
sheriff's
department.
department.
Okay.
That's where that number came from.
Nowadays, if he's doing something, his hourly rate is so low for that particular service. And it should be much higher than 15, really. I mean, what we're trying to do is present an accurate budget for him to do those services. And there isn't a tremendous amount, but he feels that it should move towards being as accurate as possible. So we had, I think you had 10.5 in there, which is the same as last year, where we suggest bumping that to 15. And then we would then alter this amount in here. Oh, it was 11.15 to match, to be able to
So
have
which one you switching, that one?
both.
The non-district
Or 15,
services.
Yeah, it would be 15, because that's getting closer to what it actually costs in terms of an actual hourly rate.
Well, if he's
or-
got it as 15, then we have to put it as 15 and,
Correct, that's right.
okay,
It was 11.
Whatever you
150.
had, yeah.
Yes, it was that, and talking to him on Friday, we felt that because of that calculation, it should be higher, and it really should be higher than this, and it's a matter of just sort of like,
what should it be?
he doesn't know, he needs to
Oh.
work out the numbers on that. At the moment, it's,
So that revenue is just.
And the
police
issue is,
Correct.
it's a slippery slope, because the 600 district users are paying that tax as well.
I'd pay
Mhm.
it twice.
but it's also trying to get a fair
No,
picture.
yeah, no, I
and
totally
it's a,
agree.
it's a difficult
And
one.
that's the
I
reason
know.
for being townwide, so that
Yeah.
there isn't, it's basically the same thing we
Yes.
did with the salaries and the insurance, and we put it all in one line so that you
Yeah.
know what your costs are.
Yeah,
Cause as a town taxpayer who lives in the village, I don't know what the implication is on my taxes for the out of district use. Well, I can tell you pretty close, it's about a penny a thousand, because it's 20. Was it 15 and?
Yeah.
15 and 21, so it's
1,000.
31,000, 36,000, so it's
36,000.
almost a cent and a half.
right, and that's part of the narrative in terms of, and my goal this year would be to have the question on the ballot for next March about the townwide, asking the entire town whether they support doing this, and we'd have information and budget numbers to support that. But already, it's not that they're not receiving service, they are, it's limited, but they're already paying a certain amount, and part of that is finding out that amount, but they're really paying under in terms of this non-district. The outside of the district should be paying more, balancing with what the services is for the inside of the
But
district.
no matter what, you put that number up, the in-district people are paying
That's
more
right.
too.
Yes, I know.
Mhm.
So it's really, yeah, I mean, the idea is about it's equity in terms of
Mhm.
everyone paying what they should be paying, and not having it doubled in here, but it just happens to be the way it is, but we're working towards fixing that. But so our recommendation was 15, so essentially we would change this to be 15 here, so that line matches.
So, yeah, the town contracted services and non-district services are, I won't say virtually the same thing, but it's outside the district,
Right,
but it's a two different. Non-district is state police can't make it.
yes,
Can you go
Right,
and
they've been requested.
Yeah.
they've been requested, and the town contract is so many hours of.
correct,
Traffic
or-
control.
yeah,
traffic
outside of the
control, state.
district, it's certain
Yeah.
areas, yeah,
And we don't get any money back from the state for covering their job.
yes.
No,
Not the non-district
No.
service.
Yeah, like
Right.
we do for highways,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we'll do appropriations last, so here's Rex.
sure, piss me off again.
Well, no, you'll see why I've done
Just
that.
when you're starting to feel
Chris and I,
tired,
we
we'll
put
get
in
you
some, we put in some wiggle room in the appropriations, just to be able to sort of play around if we're concerned about this. We've got our various things here. Our mileage, we know, we figured out this, part of this, the reason this is so high is that it's incorrectly coded to the van expense.
Mm.
So we're gonna fix that, that's why that's highlighted, but
Okay.
our budget is correct, we're up, obviously, from our 150 because people are actually writing down their mileage now. So budgeting appropriately, so that's why it looks like a large amount, but it's really, it's only because of the difference between last year's budget. But it's something that this should have been higher anyway, but people were generous and not charging for mileage. Different programming,
We don't have
Okay,
any
wait,
utilities.
rec fees, annual fees, we budgeted, but we haven't paid anything, is that because
Where's that, Michelle?
The green.
it's the
Number
green
seven.
highlight? What are the annual fees? Is there like an association for the rec? Club or something, rec department?
That's why it's green.
Yeah,
And paid
I
in 2
need
years.
to talk, yeah, I don't think there's been money spent on it ever,
okay,
but I was gonna chat with
All right.
Meredith and find out what that was.
all right.
'Cause I had the same question.
And we don't have anything for utilities?
No, because these
They're
these
here.
were combined.
You mean the Holly Hall
Correct,
and
yes,
electricity,
yes,
and-
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
it's all
okay,
one
so
building.
it's not the
Yeah,
hub.
it's sort of,
Yeah.
it's sort of
Okay.
buildings versus departments.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
hub
is
is
the hub-
below.
Okay,
Yeah, teen center's its own section.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's hard because you're seeing all these and like, should we be budgeting? But it's like, no, it's, they've been.
Right, right.
they've been-
No, it makes sense for the rec department that's hosted
Yeah,
here. I was
exactly.
just expecting that office
Right.
plus the hub.
Yeah,
So you
well, there
added back-
again, it's the same as the insurance and all that, it's a formula
Exactly.
to divide out a portion of the electricity.
Yeah,
and-
which doesn't make sense. It's just,
It's
we're just,
not.
we're causing more trouble for ourselves doing this every year.
It comes out of the same pocket.
So
Exactly.
you're adding in supplies, tree planting, landfill fees.
Right.
Those have already been added.
Yeah.
The report just has been updated.
It's essentially, it's like the condensing and then undoing a little bit of that
So,
for different sections. Yeah, it's just like different ways of thinking that Darlene had and Nemrick had compared to what we would like to see.
so this tree planting, she's got it here, it's for the park.
That's right.
And is that actually for planting or is that for maintaining or the trees or what? Do we know?
I don't, but I can.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just curious. It's like,
yeah.
we've
'Cause
got it
so, you know,
labeled
yeah,
as the
we-
other
we-
one, so
Yeah, we
it's
have
like,
we have a general one and we have this one. So do we need both? Perhaps not.
And is there one in Eric's?
There is, but I think you're right in terms of it's, yes. But we've also had grants that we've received for cutting as well, or
I think-
we can apply for them as grant too.
I think possibly we should have Eric ask us or tell us, okay, out of the, we've got coded as tree planting, but it was 99% of it, 100% of it was for cutting trees.
Tree
Yeah, so it could be
maintenance.
So we,
maintenance.
we call it tree
Yeah.
maintenance, no
We-
planting.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
let's look at that. So the tree planting definitely we can look
We
at.
don't need it for a budget item or this year, but we can.
Right.
Be handy to have.
But yeah, if we've got 5 in here and we've got 5 in the general, do we need that? Are we doubling that for some reason? I mean, given that we hadn't spent that previous one, maybe one of those disappears and it's just this? Or do we have everything as in terms of Public Works Department instead of Parks and Rec? You know, there's all this sort of
do we just have
overlap.
one line item?
Right.
Well, maybe we create the, you know, as much as I love appropriations, you know? Put it all in there, so then it doesn't disappear.
Yes. I mean, we've been very
And they
lucky
can-
in terms of getting large grants for this too, which has been great.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, you know, at least that way, maybe the rec club or the rec department,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know about Eric, his probably needs to stay in his line item as a
Yeah,
I think for
maintenance line
maintenance,
item, yeah.
Maintenance.
But for this one and the other one, maybe that's what we do.
pottery is pretty self-explanatory. Here we are with the teen center. Again, some of these were breakouts or just sort of fixing.
I just had a question about the rent for the pottery studio.
Yes,
Who do we pay the rent to?
It
Used to be Aaron Thomas, and he
so it's the
sold it.
owner of the building that pottery's
If
in.
he doesn't
Okay.
own it.
We don't know.
I thought it was him and his brother and sister, or just him and his sister.
Sold.
No, they
He sold it
sold
about 2 years, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that went up,
Yes.
Went up a little bit. It had been locked in.
and usually it was for 5, I think it was
Yeah.
5 years, we had a contract with them, 3 to 5
Yeah.
years.
But what I don't understand is, so we budgeted for the rent amount, but then paid more
We
So
could
we-
have changed ownership.
Claimed ownership.
in that period.
Yes.
Must be, and we
Okay.
didn't know.
So it wasn't locked in then for the year.
No.
Well,
And
once
then-
it changed ownership, it was either get out or pay more.
Yeah,
And so, and it's going to be more than we budgeted
Yes.
again.
Yeah,
right.
Is this amount now the real amount? Like now we have an accurate?
Yes, this should be the
Do we
what we're
Okay.
paying.
do we have a contract? I don't
I don't know.
know that I've seen one.
me either.
Because I don't like this changing in the middle of
Yeah, I
the
know.
Yeah,
year
we should at
thing,
least
like,
have
And
a
that
3
should
or
be a
5 year
contract,
contract.
And
right?
that 5460 paid, she could have paid that, it says till the 31st of December, but you could have paid, I'm just playing this out,
Yeah.
possibly paid January's 2025 one,
In
December
December.
31st or December 30th, before the end of the year, you could have paid, because you do next month.
And you could have paid June,
Right,
July, so
Right.
yeah, who knows?
it should wash out.
It should wash out.
There should be 6 payments in that number, is what you would hope.
that's why, actually, on a different note, Chris, that's what I found out with the previous treasurer was doing with the fire station. Remember, they were always confused of, wait a minute, we're paying the interest 1 month, 1 year, and then the bond. And Chris says the bond payment's gotta be due by August 30th.
And so the rec, the total rec budget was up
Be paid until after June 30th. It can be paid
17.8%
in
then,
July.
but
So
that's
everything
not
falls
what we
into
asked
Yeah.
for in tax appropriation,
next
because
year it
they
should
earn
be
some
the
of their own
same. It
revenue.
should
Then
be
it-
correct.
Essentially, if you look at the summary,
That's the amount that's supported by taxes.
yeah,
10%, 10.5%.
yeah. Which is pretty amazing. I mean, for the programming that they do.
Well, it's a
Yeah.
lot better than it used to be.
It really is, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
I give Meredith kudos, and matter of fact, when Darlene looks at has been working on reconciling our books and doing all that. She refers to the rec department now as actually a cash cow.
Mhm.
I mean, they're bringing in revenue.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
And they
no,
never used to.
rec and
It
fire
used to
budgets
just
are
There
go
was,
off.
there was times at this table, the three of us here, now look at us, you two, not you two, you weren't here yet, we were thinking of closing the pottery studio because we were losing money every year.
Mhm.
We're going, wait a minute, we're losing money and
A
big
lot of
money,
money.
not a couple of $100. We're
Mhm.
copping $2, $3, $4, $5,000 a year on a pottery studio.
But that's changed now, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like the revenue.
Mary's running a great ship. She's
Yeah.
got.
Yep.
She's got her programs accurate.
Yeah,
So I give her kudos. on
Yeah.
that. It's been a great turnaround to see.
I mean, for people looking at it, it's like, it's really the taxpayer money, like you're paying absolutely nothing really. For all the programming that they do. I mean, you're paying for that programming, yes, so that's the balance of that, but in terms of the actual taxes.
Yeah.
You know, it's the smallest amount by far of anything else, you know.
0.5% for the program.
Because
and then whatever for wages.
Yeah,
We forgot
the wages are extracted out of that number.
Yeah.
So back to your personnel question, Joel, as well, when you mentioned earlier about the 14% increase or whatever it was. That also includes your health insurance costs. So it's not just wages, that health insurance went up, Beamer's went up.
Well, that would be a lot less, we didn't have two positions that you gotta take.
2.5.
2.5 after. You know, the community specialist and the, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And what we added for the administrator.
The administrator, and we added for the grant writer.
Yeah.
Those,
And the resource specialist.
Yeah, we'll circle back.
Okay.
So it's where Brett's on, so let's do
Yeah.
It's your
fire.
fire. We said that an hour ago.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did.
Brett, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh, so the insurance came down? You never see that. That's good.
Building insurance.
Yeah. So Brett's, I mean, you look at that bottom line, it's very tight. Obviously, this isn't including salary, but again, that salary line isn't that high.
No, this budget looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, the amounts read the way
Yeah.
they should. And I think this one looks really good.
Brett runs a tight ship.
He does.
Yeah.
And I'm working with him on his two capital funds as well. I mean, we've never had a good handle on those in terms of what was spent and the actuals and stuff, because again, it's like the NEMRIC thing. But we're working on getting a system in place. So it's like, those are accurate every year and as they should be.
How many more years for the bond?
11.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
How many years is it left?
11.
We'll be there
11.
9 years in July, and we started payments then, so 11 years this July.
Okay. Yeah, this is.
And I want you guys to know, as way back in December when I called for that bond payment number, I talked to the loan officer. Our interest rate right now is 1.125%.
Yeah, we won't complain.
Yeah,
That's pretty great.
Will they give us
That's okay.
another?
I know.
that's it, but I think that's up next year because it's every 5 years it
Oh.
recalculates.
I wonder about what that'll turn into.
Yeah.
I said, wouldn't mind doing that same bond interest payment for town garage, would you?
Yeah. I know, that'd be nice. Can we lock that in? So the one yellow highlighted is the training. The training got, again, merged and we unmerged it to be able to put that in. But everything is here. We've got good detail in terms of what annual services are. Obviously, we know what the tower lease is, and we're working towards potentially of at some point removing that entirely if we can figure out another way of doing it.
Exactly.
Oh, Brett just doesn't.
So the training will now be its own line? That,
I believe so.
okay. And Chris, you'll have to remind me, what did we merge it with before?
There's a training line town-wide,
Okay,
and the fire training got rolled into that number. So we'll break it out as its own standalone line for fire training. And then the rest will be personnel training in the offices and things like that.
understood. Thank you.
For like listers and.
Myself, yeah.
Yeah, you guys go train.
How does this look to you, Brett? I don't think it's changed much since you worked on it, so.
No, well, again, I just asked the question one more time. This number does not reflect. I'll just say salaries, and we don't get salary. No.
That's
Right.
correct.
Number doesn't, yeah, it doesn't reflect the salaries and it doesn't reflect your capital fund numbers.
Okay,
So your actual line there is probably gonna be closer to 4,
Yeah,
a 4% increase?
no, 400,000.
Okay, all right.
No, I don't think
My question is,
if you just, I don't believe we have any scheduled increases in your capital funds this year.
we do
Well,
not,
capital funds don't normally get put in the budget, do they?
Well, they
We wanted to
really
put it in.
should, for an accurate number,
Yeah.
that they should
No,
be there.
it's on my notes. You know that.
And then the labor, but his labor is separate in that other document,
Correct.
isn't it? Can you
So
go to
labor,
that?
yep, labor's here and it's here. So it's 62,482. And then you have your like committee and stuff like that in there, right?
Yeah, but that's not broken out, so you can't just.
Right.
That was and that increase is the minimum wage increase.
Right.
Uh,
The state.
How much, Chris? So there's in fire,
$3,000.
it's FICA Medi and workers' comp, correct? And Beamer, no, not Beamers. So
No,
just
not Beamers,
Just like.
just FICA and Medi,
no workers' comp?
And workers' comp.
workers' comp, yes.
Actually, I believe. I remember workers.
Okay.
Go back to the fire budget, was there a worker, I think there's a,
No, you just have insurance, that's probably not
no, that's,
include workers'
no,
comp.
so the
that's
workers'
just-
comp is rolled
Okay.
into everybody.
So what we can do, not here, but we can run a report from Nemrick, which will spit out everything. It'll do the split in terms of the FICA Medi and stuff and what the salary line will be. And then we can create that. It's just with this, doing that, it's a little bit more difficult. I mean, we had done that before. That was a very complicated spreadsheet. And now we're relying on Nemrick to be able to do those because we know it's exactly accurate. So everything else is fairly standard in terms of what obviously our bond payment, fire safety education for final.
Brad, let me ask you a question. You on still?
Yeah.
yep,
Under that training, or Chris can answer for coding purposes, the 2,000 for training, so when you said you had to pay mileage for 2 guys to go to Rutland to do training for their rookie course, would that go under there or somewhere else in your budget?
I have been coding it to the training line.
Okay, that's where it should go.
That Addison County Regional School, when he sends people.
Right, yeah, I knew that was me, but I didn't know about the rookie school when they had to pay mileage to go to Rutland.
Okay,
Okay,
all right. Let's jump to Public Works.
So you don't have to stay on, Brett, unless you want to.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for being on Saturday.
I apologize that I didn't do it at the top of the meeting, but I
That's-
missed that
that's fine.
suggestion from multiple people.
I'm multitasking. I'm working on incident reports, so.
Good.
all good.
Thank you, Brett.
Thanks.
Gee, here, it's the.
Peter, I wanna ask, we put, what, 15,000 Eric did for his Grizzly, and I don't disagree with that at all. Should we kick that out of, capital equipment money,
I would,
instead of raising?
that's the thing, I don't think that, like I said, I don't think a one-time expense belongs in a maintenance line. I
Okay,
said,
I wouldn't mind
I said that when we put it in there, because it's not,
taking 10 out of capital and 5 out
Okay.
of regular maintenance. I wouldn't mind.
What are you talking about?
Eric's gonna do
he
that.
put 15,000 to rebuild the Grizzly in
He's,
his budget.
It's a
it's
one-time
here.
fee
Um,
from 12 to
so
27.
it's normally 12. I mean, if you feel that's, that's a big repair. It's not a small thing, so,
No,
Capital.
$15,000 is
yes.
pretty good size. I
Right.
mean, that's not, and it, how old is the Grizzly? The Grizzly's 20 years old, so it's not,
So you're saying it should come out of capital funds?
well, capital equipment funds. Possibly instead of out of this line, because that skews our budget for next year. Next year, we gotta lower that
Yeah.
line, and that's what we're trying to avoid.
Now, it'll pop back down to 12, 13 next year, and you're gonna get this.
But
And that's why I don't mind making that, maybe it's 17 or 15,
15, I would
and then
say.
taking 15 or 12 out of the capital equipment.
But I guess
mean-
my feeling is, isn't that still maintenance? It's still maintenance on a piece of equipment that we
But
already
it's
own.
capital,
Why is it capital?
because it's a,
Equipment.
One-time repair.
well, we have.
It's a new piece of
Oh, you don't know that.
It's a new piece of equipment. It's a new piece of equipment. We don't think that we're gonna be buying another truck
Mhm.
or a truck. They're getting specs now. I guess they're in. We're not taking that out of the budget.
No, I get that, but that's an actual purchase of a new vehicle.
Well, this
This
is
is something-
basically a purchase that they're completely rebuilding.
It's a purchase of a Grizzly.
I agree with you, like if you were just doing a repair, it should be there, but if it's like rebuilding it in lieu of buying a new one, then I think. it
Yeah.
should
So
be
like,
okay.
it's all the way I look at it, I agree with you, is, it'd be like replacing the dump body on one of the trucks.
It's a good.
That's not maintenance.
Right.
So these bars they're replacing, they're just worn out.
Yeah.
And
Hell's a
it's-
Grizzler.
and it's 20 years, right?
It takes the rocks and the frozen chunks out of the dirt, so it's just a bunch of fingers they dump on it.
Oh,
and
okay.
The
Good stuff
small
goes
stuff
through.
falls through
Okay.
and the big stuff.
I mean,
goes
we
out.
can also look at stuff in terms of like the actual cost of something.
Mhm.
Well, if it hits a threshold, I think it should move potentially to capital equipment or vehicle. If
But
we
the
know
one
it's
thing
like
we-
The
10
select board
grand.
approves.
Right.
His capital equipment, is his capital equipment all equipment?
It's pretty
I
minimal,
mean-
isn't it, Peter?
We figure it's the motorized equipment, I think,
Yeah.
is what we're, so if we go and we pull
Expensive
that.
stuff,
Huh?
the expensive stuff.
Yeah,
right?
so if we go and we pull 10 grand out of there to redo this, we're gonna.
Does it
we're
mess
gonna
up?
Mess up our numbers there. Cause we've been, I don't know if you remember, but we did lease purchase options on a couple of things so
Right.
that we could get them
Have the
ahead of
money.
time. And not take our money and not.
But then we had to come up with the money the
Right.
following year.
But it was because our capital plan didn't support buying early.
Right.
We've
Well, we
got,
gotta look at his capital plan, because
yes,
we were having concerns about not
Well,
putting enough money in there.
Well, I understand the new truck came in quite a lot more than. they thought.
Well, by the time you get the
Okay,
extended
three.
warranty, you're at 325,000.
That's what he said.
we've got things like replace the John Deere loader, replace the single axle cross-country trailer with a tandem landscaping trailer, new 8-foot wide John Deere pickup broom for the loader. So those are the kind of things we're
Yeah.
putting in there.
We
So
got
that pickup room is
got
an
that.
accessory to the loader.
Right. So I
The
think,
Grizzler is an accessory. to
Yeah.
the-
I think you could look at it in terms of like a dollar amount. I think could trigger in terms of whether it's capital equipment, because what you're trying to do, as you've said, is sort of prevent those spikes in your
Yeah.
budget and then having to have it correct it for the next year. If it's something where like, oh yeah, that's really gonna produce a spike because it's 10 grand. I think we would move it and obviously adjust but looking at the capital equipment fund and seeing what's in there. And how does that, by adding that in, what does it do to it down the line 10 years?
But I guess that's what I'm saying. I mean, I get what you guys are saying, and I agree. But we're gonna have to look at his capital equipment plan, because if we're starting taking money like that out of there, we need to readjust what we're putting in there so that he has the money to buy,
Yeah.
because I know we were talking about replacing, wasn't the grader, because we
The
just said that,
grader was
was it
the
the
one
grader?
that was.
And we're like, we don't have the money. We're not gonna have the money.
The $500,000.
And we have to, we're gonna have to look at adjusting that line item, what we're putting in, anyway, because equipment's costing, I mean. this
Well,
new
I
truck's
know,
gonna
but that's
come in
what
at
I'm
3 and a
saying.
quarter, and I think
Yeah,
we
currently,
we
I
thought
mean,
around
Based
275.
on numbers from last year, in terms of what I pulled from the town report, which again, you hope is accurate, but they know, whatever. It's not looking great in terms of, just because of the cost of equipment and what's being put in. So we put in 135,000 every year, but that's being spent rather quickly.
Well, if we buy a piece every year and it costs twice that.
I
Right,
know,
that's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
that's not gonna work. So we'll have to, we're gonna have to look at that.
You know,
Again, I need to get
And this
numbers.
board, minus Jessica, because she hadn't been on yet, but we talked about a decent sidewalk plow.
Yeah, I
Upgrade.
know, and that's still about.
They're talking
we've
about
been
the
talking about it for
broom.
3 years.
Well, we
We're
finally
talking
got the
about
broom.
now.
We finally did get the.
So,
Yeah.
so what would people like to do? I mean, we can definitely keep it as 27, or we could bump
I
that
just
down and
don't
take out.
like,
No,
to
I'd rather-
Jessica's point earlier, you can't have these numbers.
I know.
If we have these numbers going up and down.
Yeah,
I mean, we're telling her we can't adjust for every little spike in a low money budget.
Yeah.
Or in a low money line, but to add $15,000 to a line that's gonna go away next year.
yes.
Or do we just expect him to find $15,000 worth more of repairs? I mean,
We
I'd
might not
rather
have to
have,
really find it, might find him.
I'd rather have that money where we know where it is,
Yes,
instead of having a,
Don't
because
forget this
if you,
budget
if you
figure.
put that extra $10,000 in that line, they will be able to find a place to,
yes.
Spend it.
yeah, it's like, well, yeah, we do, we could replace that dump body and.
But it's
I
also
just-
you look at the history too, and you see that a budget got raised, but then you look at those actuals, and if those actuals are getting less and less each year, and you, okay, I think your budget item needs to come down.
Which is what
You
we
can't
do.
level fund it.
Which is what we do.
Yeah, we do.
So,
All right,
But also I
Peter,
feel like,
where did the repairs come for the, front end for the freight line?
That came right out of his maintenance line. His maintenance line should be way over this year.
but it's also like presenting this budget. I mean, you don't want people to feel like you're doing sort of a bait and switch, right? Where you are like, okay, we're gonna put 27,000 in that fund, but then when you look back at what was spent, 8,000, 5,000, you start feeling like, well, they're just raising taxes, so they have extra money. I feel like it's better to have a more accurate budget and then put these other things in the capital
I'd
funds.
like to change that 27 to 15 and then take 12 or so out of it, the capital, maybe 10 out of the
I
capital.
was wondering if
Yeah.
that movie started.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell?
Because people expect capital stuff to be more expensive, right? Like that's where those expensive.
Well, it's a
things
one-time
show up.
fee.
Right, and that's where those expensive one-time
Where-
things.
where-
Not everybody
I don't
understands.
find it.
capital.
That's
I
where-
know, but I
Is
don't
it
like
under
it.
contract?
Where's the maintenance line item,
It
Ian?
might be in parts.
For highway.
Thanks,
See ya,
Brett.
Hey,
Brett.
Brett.
thank you.
I thought you were
We
gonna-
have, hang on. We have maintenance here, but that's garage.
Yeah, looking for
What are we looking for?
Maintenance on
maintenance
that.
for the, it's gotta be
Yeah.
equipment and
Yeah.
supplies.
Oh, yeah.
Number 20, almost 20,000 on the.
Like
front end.
no, that was contractor.
It's probably
versus-
parts, under
It's in
parts,
parts, I believe.
Oh, okay.
cause he does parts so that the front end is
Well,
there.
here, it was 45.
Yeah,
Right.
That's
Yeah,
Was
what,
there
that
you
last
go.
year?
Yeah.
it goes under
Was that
parts.
last year?
Yeah. But that wasn't all there. That's it.
And honestly, they should have probably come out of contracted repairs if it's done.
Well,
in the
no.
garage.
Oh, he's got
No, 'cause
46 and, oh.
We buy
Oh,
the
no,
parts
eight.
and then we pay them to repair it.
So the budget it was overspent by,
30 grand.
yeah,
He did show a deficit last year. But he pulls that money from other lines.
Yeah.
The lines.
oh no,
that-
I'm sure that's what happens. I'm just wondering,
yeah.
what.
But there's no way to, you,
Some stuff you can't account for.
yeah, you kind of have to give them a little bit of leeway. I understand what you're saying and you want an accurate budget.
Right.
I want an accurate budget too. But if you look through our budget year after year after year, we're pretty close. And like last year, that
And I'm not
repair
saying-
line
Yeah, and I'm
put
not,
him over.
and I'm not saying there's anything wrong going on, but what I'm saying is that, so like I have a budget for my RAs. Well, if they want to work a certain number of hours and I have a project, I need to know what that amount is that I have left over. Is it 2,000 or 1,000? If it's 2,000, I have work that they can do. If it's 1,000, I'll probably do some of that myself, right? And that's all I'm saying is
Mhm.
that if we could get to a point
Yeah.
where we have these updates, I think then that'll tell them like, we need office equipment. Do we get it this year? Do we wait and get it next year?
Part of it
Easy stuff.
is the reporting system that we're working on in terms of what's coming out of NEMRIC, what a department head might get every month, or
Right.
whatever system we create. it's something that we didn't have in place before.
So I just ran a budget status report for everything in the general fund. It used to be like a 40-page horrific document to read through. It's down to 9 pages.
Oh, that's good.
It's manageable, and we can actually run it by department.
Mhm.
And part of that too might be, if we want to, is setting up accounts for department heads, training department heads how to use NEMRIC in terms of just being able to run a budget report. And they could do it at any time. I know that probably some department heads would want to do that. Others may not be interested, so you could supply that. But again, it's just the system that you
Part of
know.
me would love to see it every select board meeting, you guys getting a balance sheet
I would love that.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
a budget status report, and those same reports sent out to the department heads at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly, and then it's just like an early warning system, right? Like you might be overspending in this, so be careful.
So it's every couple of weeks is what you would see is that, are those numbers, and I believe that that's needs to go forward, that's what needs to be in place for you all.
Yeah,
And for them.
Yeah.
At least once
I
a
know
month. I
that
don't know that we need it every
he's very aware of where his numbers
Mhm.
are. He
Yeah.
knows
He is.
when he's over. Like you said, this year salt is
He's gonna
probably
be
gonna be over because, you know, they've
Yeah.
been out 21 days, 20 some odd days straight that they've been out.
And that's gonna reflect in the overtime too.
Yes.
Seems like every morning I look over there and the truck going.
So regarding this, you wanna knock that to 15? And
If we agree, we're gonna take the
Move
And
that.
maybe
capital
we,
equipment.
and we put a little more in capital equipment because we know we're falling behind.
Okay.
We know we're falling behind anyway, whether we do the grizzle out of
And if
that
we take,
or truck
you know,
recycle.
something else,
Okay.
if we
right?
change that and we put 10 more in capital equipment,
I like.
our
it
bottom
there.
line's not gonna change.
Tiny, but yeah, not much.
Shouldn't change at all.
You took 12 and you moved.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Plus, we have ARPA
Yeah, what?
No, I know.
money.
Unassigned funds.
Yes, unassigned funds, some unassigned funds that we can
And
move over there.
And there are some of those things where I know that the other committee, we worked really hard to come up with those things. But the cold hard reality is you may need to use some of those funds to offset some of these tax liabilities.
Yeah, I mean, I
the
like,
issue with, Chris, the issue with offsetting, I don't mind putting it in a capital fund where it's
Right.
used
Right.
later on. But if you offset actual tax dollars.
yeah, we don't.
Double
want
Next
it
year, you have to make it up.
Right, no, I agree with you. I'm in capital funds. You are correct, Peter.
Right,
That is where
right.
I'm at, not,
Yeah.
not one-offs.
And I like the idea of using that money as like seed funding to give us something else, but I mean, the fact of the matter is that we had a certain amount of time, we did what we could, right? And so we can find other productive uses, I think.
But also too, you know,
We earmarked a lot of it.
Yeah.
we have,
That's good.
and there are some that I worked very hard not to actually impact the ARPA. The bus stations, shelters, we were lucky to have that program, and I worked on that, electric vehicle
Electric
because of the
vehicles, yeah.
grant. So it's like things that we were potentially putting good chunks of money into because we
Right.
knew that it was within the top 10 or top 20 of that initial list. Those things
We
have been
found other
done with
sources.
zero
With other money. too.
expense,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
means that then you start looking at other numbers, but when we start getting into past 20, it's very broad in terms of some of those. There's nothing really that was sort of finalized in terms of what people really wanted in that. It was just like suggestions.
We've done a lot.
We
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
we have.
Exactly.
We really did. We utilized that money well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to what I've seen some of the other towns do,
There's.
who didn't even ask for input
Yeah,
and
they
just
just
said, yeah,
dumped
this
it
is what we're
into
doing
the
with it.
sidewalks or
Yeah,
something.
this is our money, and this is how we're gonna
And
use
so
it.
it's a 3% increase, is that accurate now, or are we
Correct.
missing anything big?
No,
3% in highway.
yes,
In the highway.
That's good.
and sans,
That's not including
Wages.
wages.
Wait.
Right, of
no.
course, of course.
but I do think.
But that's
out-
fixed.
out-
That's
Still
where,
good.
that's where
Yeah.
I say now it begins to get fuzzier, confusing to me.
Mm,
And I can say, I know you can click a button here and I like that.
Yes,
Another year, this will make a lot more sense, but.
yes.
try
I
to
mean,
You'll have,
just-
we'll have both. We'll be able to
Yeah.
look at it saying this are the actual costs for the department. We'll have one where we can look at
When
it
you
and
don't
say,
say
here's our.
salaries, then it's not, to me, that's not actual
Okay.
cost. I wanna know the nuts and soup to bolts.
So what we,
Yeah, but we've never included capital funds in any of them either, so.
Right.
And that's, you look at the Havens budget, highway budget versus ours, their budget's $400,000 more, but.
Yeah, well, that's because they have a lot of paving.
No, don't make that statement before
What
you
they
know.
do.
They do have a lot of pavement. They do. do have a lot of paving, but they put all their expenses, they put every single expense into that highway fast. They put their truck expenses, they put buying a truck, so their capital truck
It's
equipment
everything all
is
together.
in their highway.
But we could run a
not
report
capital.
like that if we wanted it,
What do
right?
you, I.
You know how we
you lost
have,
me.
we have a capital equipment
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Eric?
Mhm.
That's all in their budget.
Oh,
out there.
mhm.
I mean, to me, what, sort of like the summary page we have for everything else, you could take DPW, take all these gray final line, each one of these subcategories, you've got your equipment, your supplies, you've got the green, whatever it is. And you have a report that would be 6 lines. It wouldn't get down into how much are you spending on tires.
No, you're right.
So what it would be, here's what personnel costs, here's what each one of these line items are, here's your capital numbers, here's what it costs to run DPW.
Right.
I think, that's, I really would like to see that in
Sure.
one place.
Yep.
I mean, we could do a
Because, we
summary.
have a capital sidewalk, capital paving, capital
Oh, yeah.
roads. If
And
that's
they all go into this budget.
And go, then that gives you a
As soon as I
true-
learned NEMRIC, oh man, the reports. But I mean, that's what's nice about using that system instead of having this other
Side
spreadsheet that
standalone
we're relying upon, that only one person or a couple people know how to use, is that we can, if the more we can have people learn how to use it, we can do whatever we want running it without disturbing any of the information and get exactly what you want.
Yeah, and
You know.
well, the bond payments that are due, anything that's tied to roads, it's a bond payment
Yeah.
should be in there. The stormwater bonds should be in there,
Yeah, we have these, we've got both of these,
Those are in there.
yeah.
I mean, the only
Yeah,
thing I would like to see is paid by or done at or whatever. So, okay,
Yeah.
how many more
Maturity
years
date,
have we got?
maturity
Yeah,
Yeah, we always ask that.
yeah.
And again, it's hard with, using the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
That information is probably in NEMRIC and I mean, there is a note section, so we can start to add that, but
Right.
it's this other information that then needs to belong to it. But then if we're changing it every year in terms of this, it's hard to keep that flow. So it's,
Right.
that's where the software that we looked at a couple of years ago could do that, but then it's the
You're
amount of money
right.
that you pay for that to be able to do that. Is it worth doing it?
Well, and then you're having to take all the data
This
from
has
memory.
been
and
easy
put
to
it
do.
all
I
together.
haven't lost any sleep over
We haven't lost any
anything.
sleep.
There you go.
Could you remind me again for rec budget and?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so all of the time and energy we spent on renumbering and combining accounts and stuff, one of the big reasons was so we could run reports that gave you accurate information.
Yeah.
Before it was like, okay, hopefully I got everything, it was a lot of
Right.
guesswork. Now it's like, for Eric, everything that's is a 60 is
Yeah.
equipment. And when you see that fourth digit, 60, that's, I can run that report and give you just that information
Yeah.
at
That's
any given
great.
moment.
Yeah, we had it split so many different things, or were added on at the end, so it's like capturing everything together was
Yeah.
very difficult. Your question?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I forgot what rec and fire were as far as budget increases. Was fire 1.6?
So this is rec,
17.88.
What is that
1.6,
24%
okay, I
number
got
that was there?
here,
Yeah.
Teen center.
That was the
Right.
Oh, it's
program
just
expense,
one, okay,
program
gotcha.
expense, because they've got
Just
more
that
programs.
one,
Yeah,
yes,
one block.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I like this layout. It's like anything, there's a learning curve.
right,
Yeah,
And
there
once we get it, I think it will be easier. I mean, you already understand it because you guys are the ones that laid it out. And for Joel and I to catch up, it takes a minute.
no, absolutely, well, it took us a minute too, I mean, it's like, and it's also figuring out how to build it for the future too.
Yeah.
Like, we wanna do.
No,
it, so
this is a whole lot easier
Yeah,
once you understand that, all right, everything for the teen center is under the teen center line,
yeah,
Right,
with the exception of the labor.
right.
yeah,
And everything for the,
Yeah.
for the highway, for the equipment's under the equipment end, the paving's under the paving end,
yeah,
Again, maybe on the summary page, we could create, it would be basically 5 lines.
Yeah.
Of it would be like, here's
Teen
fire.
center, total
Yeah,
this.
yeah. And
Rec-
I can create
Rec
another
department,
summary.
total this.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that would be a good way,
Yeah.
similar to this,
Yeah,
but
I
just
can
for each
totally do it.
department.
Yeah, I did this just because it was matching what we'd always done in the town
Right.
report, which people are used to, and it's good. But I do think, yeah, we need that extra summary page for each, a department summary page, which I can.
Which
totally-
which
yeah.
would include then your
Correct.
So if
your
you did,
personnel expenses.
Yes.
if you did a department summary page, do you think? To Jessica's point, and I think I'm asking the question and making a comment at the same time. Do you think that people would be upset not seeing what we spend on tires and just seeing what we spend on
Overall.
repairs?
Right,
So if we did the 5 lines
yeah,
in the report like you're talking about,
Yeah.
would that suffice? And then people aren't gonna see these lines going up and down.
Mhm.
We're still gonna have them.
yeah,
So you're
So we
saying
can-
like DPW, you would have like,
6 lines.
maintenance line
Right.
total,
Yeah.
It'd be easier
building
to
expense
read.
or building
All
maintenance
those
total,
gray
yeah,
numbers.
whatever that, right.
Whatever the.
Right.
Personally, this year, I would include it,
Mm.
and the only reason why I say that is we're already making a bunch of changes. I think you make
Yeah.
Too
too
many,
much.
too many might be too much.
Yeah,
well,
Yeah,
Chris,
but you could do the summary page
Oh,
in the,
definitely.
At the beginning.
before it, and then give the detail
that's
this year.
exactly what I said. The
Yeah.
number one thing that people do when they go to look at this budget, they go to the last page and look at the summary.
Yeah.
They look
They
at that.
look, they go down to the bottom and say, to be supported by taxes.
Right,
See,
exactly.
And
That's
they're
what
gonna
I
go,
was saying. That's
my
what I'm
taxes
looking
going
at.
up 10%.
right,
And the hard part is when you look at these percentages of change, while it's a great use, it's skewed so bad. Because you may have a $50,000 budget that went up $1,000, and that's a minimal increase. But you got a $500 budget that went to 1,000.
That's a
That's
200%.
that's a
Yeah,
huge
exactly.
increase, but
Right.
percentage wise, so.
But why? I mean, why wouldn't the gray lines be enough for the town report?
I think there are some people who want the granular
They do,
experience.
they
of
like to
looking
see the
through.
detail.
Yeah,
But I think Michelle's suggestion's good. You do both, right? Like a
Yeah.
cover sheet and then anybody who wants flips to the next
So my
page.
vision too on this, just, it actually takes what you were saying, Peter, is, you know how every department has their section?
Mhm.
Is you would move all this
To their
minutia
section.
into their section.
Yeah,
And then the budget is, it's a 2-page
Okay.
document.
yeah.
That was,
I mean, that's fine.
not this, again, I don't know
Yeah.
if this year's the year to do it. We
Mhm.
made a lot of changes, Phil,
Right.
to how to present it.
But if we're gonna,
Or-
there again, if we're making a bunch of changes, wouldn't we be
Just do
better
it
off to do everything, if we think we've got it figured out,
Yeah,
do everything this year, so that next year when they grab the report, it's the same?
Yes.
That's
The
true.
idea, I mean, in my mind, and I've worked on this very hard for the last few years doing the town report, is to make it, trying to make it as easy as possible to understand. The budgeting is something that I've never had a handle on until now in terms of how to move stuff around and how to present it in a way
Mhm.
that makes it so you can immediately see, like, I've always included the summary at the end just because we've always done that, but now it's like, it makes total sense to put it at the beginning, because that is what you're looking at.
Mhm.
You want to see the summary of everything that's happened, and I think you're right, I think having these numbers, I like the suggestion of putting it with departments. You gotta figure out how that would work and what that would look like, but we can definitely play around with it.
Yeah, like on
So
a
you-
summary page, you could say, you know, you've got all the highway stuff, whatever, the public works department
Yeah.
stuff, and say, for details, see page such and
Right,
such.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you would have, your labor line would be added, all these gray lines,
Yeah.
and then all your bond payments.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
okay,
and what about your capital,
That's what capital
Yeah.
bond
okay,
payments, that's.
capital,
Yeah,
capital funds?
So that
Well,
at
so-
the end of that, so that last number, that total is just what Joel and I are looking for. That total at the end of highway department is
Okay.
the total expense, including what we
Everything.
put away for
Okay.
trucks in the future and
Equipment and
All right, we
what
can
we're
build that.
paying for bonds.
sidewalks and,
See, one of the things I asked Sharon, I emailed her last week after Monday's meeting was,
she didn't get back to you, she's now sick, did she?
no, she no, she hasn't been back to me, so I'm sure she's been back.
yeah,
Is, actually, I think the public works revenue line ought to go up another $4,000 or $5,000. The question I asked her was, I saw a bill in there, there's been 2 bills in there this year in December, or maybe one in December, one in January, for Mount Abe salt for like $2,000 a piece. Mount Abe buys about $6,000 worth of salt, so the 63,000 in salt in the next line, is that minus 4,000 this year so far in
He
salt?
said yes.
yeah, build
And
it,
it is, so should it go back up in, he spent that much in salt.
Yeah.
He's getting 5,000 or 6,000 back at the end of the year, should that go up in the revenue side?
oh, I see.
You see,
So what?
under his town
Yeah,
highway
so-
revenue.
Yeah, at
And
the
that's why
moment,
I asked, what did we, Mount Abe buy in salt for the 23-24 budget year?
I mean, that might be a particular one because we do have,
You know, change that by $6,000 in revenue.
Where's the
And that
miscellaneous
might be what
revenue?
this is. That miscellaneous line in under
Yeah.
DPW revenues.
Okay, yeah,
It
you're right,
may
it
be.
it
I
may
don't
be,
know.
I don't know.
Same here, I don't know, but that, just looking at the amount that's there, I think
Right.
That's like three.
it's getting the right.
Mount Abe
amount.
used to buy their own salt when I was there, but Cargill cut it out.
Yeah, because-
Municipalities get it, they don't consider it
I
school
mean,
district,
here,
it's
here
not.
essentially,
Fine line,
this
School
is, this
districts
is
is
similar to what that
selling
is. It's the reimbursements to town and here's the library insurance or, and things like that, right? So that's kind of reimbursements and it would be, you would create one, instead of being miscellaneous, it might be a reimbursement line, or maybe this turns into a reimbursement, I don't know.
We could actually add a straight up Mount Abe reimbursement line and not have a miscellaneous.
You got a
Yeah.
blank line right there with little dupes.
that's the only question. That's the only
I said
question had
technical
for
there.
We could,
If
we
you
could
had-
dig in to make sure that that's what,
Yeah.
if we broke that out and actually called that out, I think we would do what you're looking for, Joel.
So let me ask you, so in terms of public works, so you're saying these for these different areas, and it's again, this is garage, but then this doesn't really have a heading. It's a matter, do we figure out headings or do we?
Well, I think that's
Is that the
utility.
only
fees.
one that
It's all
doesn't have
utilities.
Utilities, okay.
Yeah, I would just call it, yeah, I was gonna say utilities, but
Utility
Little bit.
tree work is utility, got hired. somebody
yeah,
to
I would
come
just
in
say
and cut.
utilities, leave it there. Yeah.
So we would do all these and then
Yeah.
we've got our bonds
Yep,
at the bottom here. What else are we adding to this?
the capital funds,
Just so the two capital funds?
and then the salary line. for
There's more than
personnel.
two, there's sidewalks, there's.
Sidewalk,
there's,
capital
highway,
roads,
capital roads,
paving.
there's capital
I think there's
paving.
4 for DPW,
Okay.
at least 4 that I can get rid of.
And then all capital funds.
Where are the capital, who are the capital cemetery, who's in charge of them, us, or they?
Does that go general services or general?
Cemetery.
Hmm.
It doesn't go to DPW.
There is a cemetery line.
Well, there's capital cemeteries fund, so that.
I thought that
goes-
was us though, cause
I think
that
that's
was
under
mowing
general
and-
figure because
Yeah.
So
you're
one,
mowing in the cemeteries and paying Green
two,
Mountain Cemetery Association.
3, 4.
5.
Well,
That's it.
cemetery or no?
No.
Okay,
No,
so
I don't
4.
think it says-
Paving, road, sidewalk,
and
equipment.
Yeah.
Okay,
Of course,
And then you
We
gotta
all
do
know
the
that-
same for the fire department.
Yeah.
well, we got the building fund that we split that in about 3 different ways. We've taken some out for this building. We've taken some out for when Red Loaf did their study.
Well, I would think that
I like
the
that.
technology, the building, reappraisal,
Those are all this.
those would be,
General.
are the general, under the
Those would fall
general.
Under the general
Yeah.
operating is where I would see that.
And
would
then the
go up.
capital recreation and,
I'm
would
not
go
willing to
under
make
the,
another one, but there really
Rec.
should be a capital building fund for highway, because we did Red Loaf's study at the highway garage. We took that out of the capital building fund.
Right, but it's,
We did it as a
it's
general. But
It's,
it should have been referred to as, you
No,
don't think so?
no, only
Because it covers all buildings.
at the end, when we, at the end.
It does
when we-
cover all buildings, but
When we build a building, then it would be, then,
Yeah. Maybe we'll reimburse it then.
then, well, no, then there would be the
What do we have
line
left?
in the
Police?
budget to pay for
bond,
it.
yeah, bond.
hold on a second. So wait, so paving, road, equipment, sidewalk, general would be tech, reappraisal,
reappraisal,
building,
Cemetery conservation.
building,
cemetery,
cemetery.
conservation fund,
Okay,
and then the capital rec goes under the rec.
Now, we're gonna decide on these sometime
And then
too,
there's another rec fund as well, right?
for the van. She
There's
has
the
that.
capital equipment for the rec.
yeah, that's rec.
And that's equipment and facilities.
But
It's right
didn't
there.
we start,
She
This one
starts
here,
one in the
that-
budget
that's
for
the
the
one.
van.
Yeah, that's the one.
and we're gonna do another one this year for skate.
For the
park,
skate
yeah.
park.
So that would be under rec. Okay, so we've done public works, we did fire, police. Worked with Bruce on this
Was he
But-
able to
Yeah,
estimate
I was
the
gonna
say.
salaries? Okay.
you did. Which essentially is here.
Mhm.
And then
Plus
here,
part-time.
and then here.
Does his salary line include like overtime and stuff like that?
It's
as well?
separate.
That's 24. Number 24 is overtime, right?
Overtime salary, I see, it, yeah.
It went up
Yeah.
135%.
Went from
That's a shift,
37 to
that's a shift
42.
differential and
So-
stuff.
Correct, it's because for some reason, we budgeted 17,947 last year.
How the frick do we do that?
Not sure, because it was 35 and we
Right.
then did
And then we
37.
Would've thought we
It could have been that, I think, part of the thinking was you would have,
The fourth officer.
correct, And it took longer to get the fourth officer, and so we continued to have more overtime that full-time officers were doing. I
Yeah.
think that's part of the reason. So I think we assumed we would be getting the fourth officer that would absorb some of those costs, and that didn't happen. And so that's why we're up at this now.
And that kind of is the same thing that happened with part-time labor.
Right, part-time salary, you
Yeah.
can see, was like 11, but now we're putting that down. So it's kind of like a balance between those two.
Okay, here again, Ian, where does, I mean, it looks huge, almost 12% increase, but where do we factor in the police grant for 3 years, cops grant?
It's in here,
Mhm.
Okay, we
So
got,
once that's gone,
yes.
Then we have to pay
that
for it.
budget's going up another
Another
40,000,
40, 50,000, probably more than that.
Yeah, and that's, this is, again, the salaries, which includes
Plus
the
42,
part-time as well as the
42
overtime
overtime. Mhm.
is,
So that's all in that one number?
No,
no, those are all,
That's all in that
That's
bottom.
separate,
that-
yeah.
the
bottom
553,
yeah,
so in revenue, we're taking in 70, we're taking in less money this year in revenue than last. Is that, am I correct in saying it's -75?
yes,
Mhm.
it's only because these are summed with,
we don't have police
taxes.
revenues up in there either. Do we not have,
No, we don't have revenue.
we don't have a revenue budget.
no, we don't. You mean,
It's been blank for years.
Yeah.
Right,
no, it's because this is a miscoded one, that's
Okay.
why. It's an old holdover that
Mhm.
something got coded to.
Yeah.
We don't have police revenues because the revenues are from taxes.
Taxes.
right.
And essentially, because we have actuals for previous years, that's why this amount. I could add that this is summed at the moment to not include this. This number here is essentially the minusing this from this to create this, which is what I could do for our fund, but we don't. For the police, because it's its own
That's what it is.
enterprise
That's good.
fund, we do say how much is raised. Like, we actually can set that amount. It's not based on the tax rate that's set. It's like, this is the actual amount.
And then the tax rate is set to,
Correct.
Cover that.
So if you look at, essentially, if I sum this differently, if I can actually get to it, where is it? If I do this to this. Oops. Oh, maybe I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
Don't mess
wouldn't-
up
I
your,
wouldn't.
don't mess up your,
If it keeps
undo,
shooting,
undo,
yeah.
undo.
That's fine. So essentially, Joel, it's closer to this.
So 155 plus
Yeah,
534
that's right,
will give you
essentially,
the
yeah,
6,
yes.
whatever, 6 or 7.
Yeah.
What's the thought of the board of the one you got in the gray, the 15,000, we talked about that earlier. Is maybe make that, trying to get that in 2 years, let's go to 12.5 or 13 now. Trying to get under that 11.75% increase.
Pay me now or pay me later. If you don't.
what's gonna happen is, you're not gonna get away from it, because the cops grant, we're not gonna have.
Right,
And we're gonna have to make up
Another year on
that
that.
40,000, so if you cut that,
Well, we got another
11.
year on the cops going after this one.
yeah, but
Yeah,
you're
one more.
still gonna have to make it up.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so we've put it in, even though we haven't used it, but we have to use it by a certain time, but it's gonna be used up fairly quickly over the
Mhm.
next year.
You know, what happens if they vote this budget down, then we gotta get rid of an officer. That's the only way,
Right.
that's really the only fluff in this
So
budget.
really, it's a
no
10%, it's a
no
10%
town
increase.
contract.
Without the town
without the
we
contract, that's
don't-
less revenue.
less
so-
revenue.
I agree.
That's another officer.
Yeah,
If you take that-
it's a complicated fund because of how it's split.
Mhm.
Fire department doesn't have that because it's townwide, DPW doesn't,
Fire
obviously.
department used to have, because when it was a
Right.
town and a village, when
It's
they
50-50.
merged, the town got the fire department.
Yeah.
But before that, they used to build just the way the police
Yeah.
Police
department, the village used to build the town.
And it's hard because Bruce has said this repeatedly to us. It's difficult knowing what to do because we don't have a plan. Is the plan to continue like this, or it continues to go up, or you remove officers, which then removes time, which then creates openings?
It removes
things to
support,
happen,
it removes
yes.
the sound support.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
People
think
are used to
other,
having.
yes, and other towns have reduced those times, and there have been consequences to that.
Just look at north.
So it's a 10.5.
Does it just look north of here?
Yeah, look at Burlington.
Look at Heinsberg.
Heinsberg and Richmond are combined.
Yeah.
Richmond doesn't have a
And
police chief
Bruce
anymore.
and his crew are too dedicated to this town to be able to do that. But at some point in the future, the district
Needs to
Will.
grow.
Well, the district needs to
Maybe-
go, or the district will, similar to the school, will say no. It's,
Right.
we're not accepting this
Right.
at the moment. And can it be revised to be something less? And so, and I hope that we don't get to that point. I hope we get to a point where enough people support the town-wide and it starts to balance out and it's shared, you know, or
Well,
maybe,
we
or
were-
maybe even it's a 5-town.
We
you
were
know, it's-
supposed to be ready to have that vote this year.
I know,
And we really need to push that along.
yes.
Well, some of it
Because-
is Bruce just hasn't had time to really
Yeah.
focus and get the numbers together.
Yeah, but
It's
we
just
really need, because this is not sustainable.
Yes.
No,
And he
I don't
knows
even know
that.
if it's good for this year.
I've said for years, we don't have an expensive police department, we just have a piss poor way of paying for it. Sorry, I'm public. servant.
Unfortunately, Jessica, there's maybe one or two people that show up to police district meeting. Listen,
Yeah,
and there's never any question.
Yeah.
I mean, very few questions that ever arise.
I think, you know,
But Bruce, to me, Bruce does a very good job. He tries to
Yes.
keep it. And this is killing him. I'll bet you this is killing
Yeah, I
him.
know it is.
Mhm.
I know it is.
although, so is this right? So the budget that we asked for over here was 599, but we spent 484. We asked for 626 and we don't know exactly what
Right.
that will be. I mean, is there a way to pull that down to like 8%?
The
instead of
reason,
10%?
the number is down, Jessica, is because we went without cops. We went without 4 officers.
Right.
So that's wages we budgeted that we
We
didn't
didn't
spend.
have, we didn't spend.
Yeah.
Right,
There's times Bruce was working night and day,
right.
nobody on weekends.
So you should
And he-
see that money in the labor line. Yeah, we budgeted 469 and we spent 392, so that's that 4th officer. There was a time where Bruce worked for like 8 weeks, he was the only one we had because we had an injured officer and
Right.
nobody else.
But the next section is also like that, like we budgeted
Section,
one,
you say.
the next grade line. So, you know, we budgeted 130 and we spent 92. Budgeted 131, and unless we do a lot of spending, that should come
Right.
in under.
That's true.
So I guess what I'm suggesting is, do we just go ahead and say, okay, it's a 10% increase and this is what it is?
Right.
Or do you trim a little bit of these other things and say it's an 8% increase? Does that feel better?
Right.
I mean, because it's not like we would be asking him to not have enough money, like these are consistently,
Yeah, but you
Areas
look at
where
his
we've raised
numbers.
too
I mean,
much.
Yeah.
the thing that went up is insurance,
Mhm.
communications, and the
I'm not-
facility
but
expense.
I'm
So
not
it's
talking
like,
about what went up. What I'm saying is when you budget and then you see your actual, right?
Right.
So like, you know, pick facility expense, right? You budgeted 55, what line is that?
That's a
40.
given.
40. Mhm. That's
So,
a given.
so you
know
budgeted
that number.
55 and you spent less than 50. Right? This is what I'm saying is that like, if you drop each one of these lines down just by a little bit, it will impact your
Oh,
bottom
yeah.
percentage.
For this one, the facility this is the rent payment up to now, but this number is, should be very close to what that cost will be.
Because, yeah, we have the
Because
triple,
we have
the triple net changes.
Yes.
Like
So in
month to
the
month.
past, it wasn't accurate because something happened?
No,
or-
it's, some of it was a guesstimate because, well, we
Yeah.
ran out of our 3-year
Yeah, he's-
3-year lease,
7 years.
so whatever it was. So now we've got 3 years, so we weren't really sure what
Jessica,
the
you-
rent would be and what the triple net would
You
be.
take that facility expense.
So the triple net right now is, we're not always sure what that number's gonna
Times 2
be,
is only $1,000 difference.
because that's,
We
That's
can go ahead and
taxes,
put
facility, and
10%,
that.
but I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
shocking number, right?
It is.
Right.
Well, to be honest with you, so across the board, just talking with Darlene yesterday from Nemrick, 10% is what most community, anywhere from 8 to 15% increases statewide with most of their
Oh,
clients.
yeah, I bet. I
Mhm.
mean, we're gonna get these huge tax bills from both the state and education.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm
Yeah.
just starting to see, like, people are afraid. you know,
Of
like
course,
they're.
yeah, we're all
I'm
afraid.
afraid too, I'm
Right.
afraid to see the tax bill, and it's just like,
Just
if there are ways to even bring it down a little bit, I mean,
Yeah,
it
no, I
doesn't
know.
sound like a lot,
Yeah,
eight
no, I know.
percent
Okay.
versus 10%,
These are the ones
but.
that are.
Those are the gray lines.
I don't
I
know.
mean, yeah, you could start to do stuff where you're doing this,
But this is. what
right?
department
You're
would do.
dropping
Which is
that.
more
Yeah.
accurate, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah,
gonna say
well, we'll figure out
cut
exactly
into your
what
budget,
it's
it's
like
just
a manual guide.
accuracy.
Well,
That's
that
stuff, but
training at
She's
fifteen
already
hundred
had-
That should be in the labor. line.
was,
It is, but.
We were thinking
obviously,
4
all
officers.
implementing.
Mhm.
I don't know what his
So,
training
I know.
requirements
Yeah,
are,
it's
so,
not hard to do.
you know, if we take that out, and
So
then he's
it's
like,
hard
okay, he
because
needs to
And
go
then,
get.
but see how fast it starts to
This is
drop,
what
just.
I know.
Oh, I know, I get that,
little,
but-
you know.
Our
Yeah,
budget
put
that we
that-
present would be
Would you
this.
have that 1,000 at?
Very condensed.
15?
That was
I mean-
pages.
That was what
All
Bruce's
that
budget
information
was.
goes in.
Yes,
Part of it's
where
hard
if they
because
wanna go
you
through
often
it.
look at your
Yeah,
actuals
that's-
and it's half a year. And
Mhm.
so you're like,
Right.
is this accurate? Do I double
That's,
this?
that's
So
why
that's
it
a-
would be nicer if
I
we
know.
had more data, because
Right.
then you
So
can
that's
see,
the
so we're
whole
really
part of it,
using
Which is
one
really the
year.
reporting, once it hits July first,
Mhm.
is to
And
have
that's what each.
almost like
department would
a
be.
post-budget.
Yeah,
That's when we should do
Yeah.
it, exactly.
Because then you can see,
And
you
then
can
you'll
say,
know.
look, Bruce, you
Right.
had it, or whoever,
Right.
you had it budgeted for 1,500, but
Every
really
year.
you only
What's the
spent.
problem?
Right.
1,000.
And then what you
Right.
could do is use
What
that
happened,
budget to
then there'd be a
say,
reference
for
just like
department
this.
heads,
And this
here's
would
your
be your
budget,
budget, that's
unless
right.
you know
Yes.
something's
Taxpayer
coming, and
in
then
the
adjust
budget
it.
section.
Yeah,
And then
this
this
would all
would be so
be-
much
Yeah.
cleaner. and
Yeah, I don't
easier.
need to know.
Yeah, because when we get to the next part,
Don't need to know.
we're really looking at
Or mowing the
actuals
lawn.
from
But some
the
of them
current
right
year,
there.
which again, I mean, we do look a year
Keep it apart,
back,
let them know
and so that's what you're kind of
so
looking at here, so
Right.
you're right, so. But then of course,
As much
so,
as
all
we'll
right,
work it up
you're
to
budgeting 1,500, but look, a year and a half ago or a year ago, you only spent 700 total, if this was accurate, that was
If it
part
was
of it,
accurate.
you know, that's the
This
part of
was-
it.
Right.
just the
But
other amount.
hopefully it is accurate, but I think you're right, I think we start in July, after, once we get everything, we'll do those reports and we'll see.
So
what it actually looked like for the whole year.
Well, you may not be able to actually do that until the end of July, because something's.
Right.
filtered through.
That's
So we
right.
should.
By
we should
August,
Yeah.
ask
by
them
August,
to
we
work.
should be able to have those
start doing
numbers.
We
to get
should
us.
put that in our agenda
What's
and
budgeted?
make sure we do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
But
know.
also with the expenses against it, we,
Okay.
I just think we're showing people.
So that was
true numbers.
police.
So I think
So here's our appropriations. Obviously, these,
We
these are
can't
all-
change.
No, those are all out of our control.
Every year.
Okay.
Hold on, you guys,
Right.
we got, no, but Chris brought
So
up
we'll
you
look
guys,
at
just
the
before we get into that,
funds.
just went in there and just did some, see, this is just a fire department thing. He just did fire department, utilities, outside
Good,
services,
so that's
salaries,
perfect, that's okay.
and you can
Yeah.
see that whole department cost us 2.25%.
Great.
Could do another one for rec, another one
Yeah,
for highway.
Great.
That's
We'll work
And
on
that's what our budget could look like.
Yeah.
For the
On one
budget.
page.
That'd be
on page.
so nice,
So,
yeah.
Just, that'll just confuse people. Wait, is this really it?
It's so easy to read.
Town report down to 5 pages.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so our, obviously, as I was saying, these top ones, we don't have control. But these are our reserve funds, our capital funds. or-
And we
or
heard
various
from
funds.
all of the ones up above, they've
Correct.
either called or
Yeah.
filled
Yes,
out their.
they're all done. It's not the minus 1,000. I haven't corrected that yet.
Yeah.
So these are all standard. The ones change was this. Chris and I bumped this to 25 only because we feel we'd like to be able to update the website and technology. Usually it's 7. And so this is where our buffer is, where we're at a certain percentage at the moment, but we've really bumped that up because we feel it's important. But we know that obviously it affects that final line.
So that 11% right now is what?
That's the total increase.
Just for capital, the
Just
appropriations,
capital or?
appropriations
Yeah.
and capital funds.
Appropriations.
So your capital's going up 8% and your appropriation, voted on appropriations are going up 17%.
Yeah. The appropriations,
Uh-huh.
once I do the bar charts, you'll see how big a chunk it is for the town.
Oh, I know.
It's
because-
amazing.
And the library number's the big one that jumped in that list. If
Yes.
you look at it, that's the biggest increase, was your
But also,
library and rescue.
I think a lot of people are like, they support each one of these individually,
Yes.
right? And then you see the overall impact and you're
Yes.
like, wow, that's huge. What, can't people just do
And there's
donations?
30, I mean,
Right,
there's 30 of them on that list.
And can you go?
And it keeps getting
change that-
bigger.
Yes.
That 25 to,
No one ever drops
pick a number,
off.
I'm gonna pick a number 15.
Okay,
Yeah, but you,
Yeah, that's
we're
a
already,
percent.
we're already talking about the capital equipment fund for highway and
Right.
putting more money in that.
No, I'm just,
So-
we just, I know, I just lowered the, he had 25 in for
Mhm.
technology. I lowered it by 10.
Yeah.
But I doubled it from 7
Mhm.
or over doubled it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, little steps.
yeah,
Just asking,
No, that's a fair number.
okay,
okay?
But so,
You didn't get everything you want this
No.
year, but
right. No, it builds it up, which
it
is
builds a
nice.
fund.
And so I haven't done this process on this side of the table
Yeah.
before, but so for the appropriations, we can't suggest what we think is an appropriate amount. It just comes in on this piece of
They-
paper.
Right,
can
that's
change
their
it, they
request.
can
They can
change it
change
from
it
before.
anytime.
They can raise them, they've
And then
increased
it's
them,
down
I've
the
never
floor.
seen them, I've never
Right.
seen them vote one down.
And so then that is just, I mean, we include it as part of our budget, but it really isn't. It goes to these other
It is
organizations.
part of our
Part of it is
budget
we have
because
our
we have to
taxes.
pay, we have to raise taxes
We
for
have to
it.
pay for it, right, but it doesn't come to
I'm
us.
not-
It's not something we've decided.
I'm not entirely clear. From my research, when I was doing the town report, started doing that, I wanted to find out more about the appropriations. It's not all states do it. It's a very Vermont thing to do.
Yeah,
the appropriations.
yeah, exactly.
But looking at my research, it seems like some towns at select board meetings do have the power to change the number. And I don't,
Okay.
but I don't know where that
Now, if
is.
it's petitioned.
If
I
it's
don't believe-
petition, they can raise it, they can't lower it. I don't think we
No.
can lower it, right?
No, if it's petitioned, they petition to get it on the ballot.
Right.
You get the
So you
signatures, you
can't,
do a certain
yeah, you
amount,
can't change it.
but
But
We
why,
can't change
they,
it.
but people on the floor can change it.
Yes,
Can they change it down?
yes.
Never do, but
They
they
never
could.
do, right? I know they've changed it up.
yeah.
Yeah, and then it changes our bottom.
But
Right.
also too, I mean, with those, last year we did talk about trying to go to Australian to be able to have it individualized, so you, as a
Which
voter,
we
you
did
could
during
choose,
the pandemic.
which we did. And it was nice because you got data in terms of what organizations were supported or whatnot. I mean, nothing,
Nothing
Nothing
failed.
failed.
yes.
Sharon said that Virginia's been petitioned
Right.
or been voted as long as she's been there, and there's never been one fail.
Yeah.
I
New
wonder-
Haven's
I
the same
wonder-
way. I did research on New Haven because they do theirs in line item as well.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find one that got voted down in New Haven.
Right.
So
I mean,
people
I-
complain about their taxes and then vote for a whole.
What
new
else
one.
would
happen
What I'd like to see
that
under-
discussion every year and it just drives me nuts.
Ian, what I'd love to see under every one of these lines, like all the appropriations. Your taxes last year, the tax rate last year was $1.75 and you paid 25 cents per hundred
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
buy this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm
not that
curious.
these aren't all good things, but it's just like asking taxpayers to just pay across the board versus like if you want to make a donation, right? Like if you
Yeah.
think this is. a
But
good
see-
pro- Although like the bus, I can see that's clearly.
Yeah.
like,
Well,
something
think about, I have to wonder about this, like, we have always have this discussion with Dave Sharp, and
Yeah.
about delinquent taxes and stuff. And he doesn't want to charge penalties or interest or whatever,
Mhm.
but it's like, okay, so if we don't get paid taxes by somebody and they're delinquent, we still have to pay these.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we don't make
So
what
now it's
we're,
more-
if
more
we don't make what we're supposed to make, then where does that money come from?
Right.
Yeah.
But then the other question I have is this by state statute? Can we have a policy that says,
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, cause like
Wait.
the Bristol Family Center, it's a
Right.
great thing, but they don't pay any taxes on their building. They're cheating us out of 10 grand a
neither
year.
neither
Right.
does the rescue squad?
But that
Yeah.
should be our contribution to them, right? Is no tax
You
bill.
would, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely like to look into it. Not that I'm against those programs, but it's just,
And the hard part
It's how
is.
rigid
all
When
of
it
the
these
is,
rescue
you
programs-
know?
squad comes up again, you think we ought to tell people that, yeah, they're getting 30,000 out of you, you still wanna pay their taxes
Right.
too?
Who's that?
The
rescue
rescue squad.
I mean, and the hard part is, most of these organizations, this is how they do their budget. This is how they
That's right.
survive.
yeah.
Right.
And every town has these same
Yeah.
line items.
Oh, I know.
So it's where it's so hard to.
So
Right.
let's go
I mean,
back to
they're
the
all
top.
good services. I won't
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
well, most of them are good services,
It's
but
It's just such a
but
rigid
it's-
funding
it's-
model, you
Yeah.
know?
It's terrible.
yeah, and they depend on it. It's like,
Yes.
at some point, people are gonna say no,
Mhm.
and then what are you gonna do?
I mean, some of these organizations
I'd
looking at
rather do
them-
it like grants, you know,
Right.
like vote in a certain amount of money as grant money and then fund it out of
Well, if we
that.
get it
I'll-
from
I'll
here,
pick on-
if we get it from here, we don't have to look for grants.
I mean, I won't pick on Neat TV, but Bristol's the only town they ask money for. And they go from Stocksboro to Richmond and Haven,
Oh, and they videotape all.
No, they don't videotape them.
No.
but all those people see the school board meetings and all
Right.
that. And but they're the only town, we're the only town they ask for money for.
Yeah, I don't know. We could look
Yeah,
into
damn
the,
Bristol core too,
I mean,
yeah.
You know, we could be like Middlebury,
Bristol Core is like
We-
having
we-
the grant position.
Right.
Grant writer, grant
we could be
administrator.
like Middlebury and call it, Bristol Core wouldn't like it, and I don't think Main Street would definitely wouldn't like it, is one 1 cent downtown designation tax.
Right. Well, there is, so part of the
There's a
discussion,
proposal for a 1% tax.
well, so part of,
Is that the TIF tax? Which I don't
No.
No,
totally
that's
understand
the,
TIF
local,
tax.
1%
Local
of
option
sales.
tax.
local
Local
option.
option tax.
so
Oh, the one
Val-
that Middlebury's been using.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Middlebury not
lots of
only has the
towns use it.
1% local option
Val,
tax.
Val was a big supporter of it, and I talked to her about that. She thinks it's a very viable thing,
Mhm.
and it's part of a
Generates a
discussion.
lot of money.
It does,
Mhm.
it does.
I take Williston with
Without a lot
all
of
the retailers
impacts.
there,
Yeah.
And you can choose, there's
The equipment
different
dealer
levels
up there
to it.
pays
Right.
millions of dollars in that 1%
Yeah.
tax because they sell, they sell
A lot of
$500,000 pieces of equipment and they
Mhm.
you pay, well,
Yeah.
I buy it, I pay that extra 1% to
Yeah.
Williston.
See, I was told,
And you can choose, it can terms of, it can be sales, or it can be meals, it can be boarding,
Right.
rooms
All
or
the
whatever,
above.
and
Yeah.
meals, or all of the above. And it's, part of it is that there's gonna be an extra amount of money that you as a resident here is paying, but you're also paying taxes. So there's that, but everyone that's not a resident is
Is
also
paying
paying that. So
yeah.
they're really, the more people that you can
That's why I
bring to
like
your
it.
town
Yeah.
to spend money
Right.
in your town is helping you reduce your taxes, because that's it.
I
That's
mean, like
bringing money.
Friday nights here in town, Main Street's full, all these parking spots are full.
Yeah.
In front of across the street, there, I mean,
Right.
so
Yes.
there's a ton of people coming into our community in the evenings to go to the restaurants and all,
Yes.
which is great, and
Yeah.
capitalizing on that. Because
Yeah.
for me personally, if I go out to eat and it's a $50 bill, whether I'm paying 9% or 10% tax.
Doesn't matter.
It's pretty small.
Right.
Another $1 on $100
Right,
worth of
or
food.
less.
Right.
It's 50 cents, it's 50 cents extra on my on my
Yeah.
bill, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
what I
It's
see,
a matter of sort of, again, similar to like a discussion about townwide police, it's like informing the public about, that we're looking at doing this, and these are the benefits. And again, it's putting it on as a vote or as an article to see what people
And it's
think about
not,
that.
it's not a taxpayer increase in tax, it's really
It's a user.
a user, a
Exactly.
user tax.
And that has been very successful,
Mhm.
so,
on the side, on the flip side, when I'm at the bank and I'm approving bills to pay like the electrical bills. And I see $175 or $70 local tax
Mhm.
on the electrical bill.
Yeah.
And it's everybody in town.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not just you.
It's just not, yeah. And,
Okay, we looked through pretty much everything, that's our.
Well, the reserve, do we
Yeah,
need to
capital-
change, do we need to change these reserve
Well,
amounts?
let's talk about that. I think I would leave them like this for now until I can get you on Monday, the reserve fund amounts that we're currently at. We need to run some reports and be able to present those. And then I think we could take a look and see.
Yeah, I'm just worried about that capital equipment fund for the highway.
well, I'm also, we sometimes, Peter, correct me wrong, we sometimes booster them a little bit, want to raise one when we need to, like a capital equipment by $4,000 or $5,000 if we
Yeah.
had a good surplus 2 years before. But we don't even have 2 years surplus
No,
numbers yet, do we?
no, and we're not adding anything from unassigned funds to bolster any of these.
Because we don't know what
With
that, we
the
don't know what those
exception
numbers.
of the new rec fund.
Correct,
Coming
because
from
we-
the old
That's right.
ARPA.
Unassigned,
Right.
yes.
We already know that that's there.
But we do have that unassigned ARPA fund
We
amount.
Correct.
So.
Do we not need to do something with that right now? Do
No.
we not, we don't need to.
Essentially, we're just, at the moment, it's in here as, where is it? I can remember where the heck it came through. Oh, it's here. It's this. There.
500.
That's the transfer in,
Mhm.
essentially, from of ARPA funds to become unassigned.
And
funds.
of that, 140, whatever is
Yeah,
going to that,
The skate
to
park.
skate park.
And
yeah.
so it's a matter of us creating, we can track it in NEMRIC, but it's easier to track it like in a spreadsheet, knowing that, okay, here's the money at this point in time. As we start
Let's
to
take
draw down
stuff
from
out of
different
it.
things, there's the skate park, there's this and that, knowing how much is left, and then we can sort of get a better picture.
Mm-hmm.
And also too, with the audit, we're doing 2 years. When we start budgeting in November, we will have actuals
numbers.
and real numbers
We
for
hope.
unassigned. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're probably better off not to
Do
do any
any-
unassigned
Exactly,
funds.
Yeah.
let's
Yes.
just leave it for right now.
But.
Well, yeah, because we have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
No
right.
no new increases or none?
None.
None.
Well, I don't think that's a good move.
Well,
Where-
no,
what do you
what-
got for money?
We have
We
no
don't
idea.
know.
I mean, no,
I agree.
no,
Wait,
wait a
well,
minute,
let me
Joe,
hear
we
you
can,
out.
we can increase these numbers. But we
that's what I'm
can't add,
asking.
we can't add unassigned funds to them, because we don't know what that number is.
So
This, we would just,
We're
if we were
still
gonna
gonna
add this,
add to the tax rate, 135
right, it
and
would
all.
add,
Correct.
yeah,
Okay.
all of these will
But
stay
you
the
said you're gonna
same.
add any.
No, these would be
can't
the
zero
same.
this.
I mean, if we wanted to
No.
increase them some, we could, but it would add to our tax
We
rate.
would, if we knew that we had an issue with our funding, which we don't, this is where we would take one of those down a year if we really needed to, for some reason. If we knew we couldn't budget for that. If for some reason we had this gigantic expense that we had to accommodate for, this is where you would take them down. Usually we've done all these and we've had, at least for the last couple of years, we've known an unassigned amount and we've bolstered other funds.
So when's the last time we got a leftover funds, we'll call it for fitter, unassigned?
Yeah.
Last year.
Gosh, well,
Last.
we
it was-
didn't even have an
we used it
accurate
last-
number.
We used it last year, but that number was from 2 years.
21, that was
2
from
years ago.
It was
21,
from 2 years
22.
prior.
Yeah.
And we don't have 22, 23 yet?
No,
or
because
23,
everything,
24.
those are all being
And
combined.
we know from our budget numbers that Eric had a deficit.
Yes.
Did
And
anybody
we,
else?
well, we know that Bruce has a deficit and he's actually using part of that as he's done before. You'll see that and it's a
right, his
new,
transfer in.
correct. It's essentially transfer in, it needs to be renamed, it's really the unassigned funds. This isn't in here because of the way that the NEMRIC does it, but this is from the budget last year. He put in 20 and then that last year's budget was 15 and we put in 15 again. He knows because of lack of officers and he knows he has unassigned funds within his budget.
From
So-
2 years
He,
ago.
he may
Or
not
from
have it,
23,
No, from the
22,
past,
23.
Yeah,
and
so
whatever.
we're
he
gonna
probably
have to
won't
make-
have it going forward though, because now he's got 4 officers.
correct.
And we're gonna have to make that money up
Right,
with,
No, you don't.
we're gonna have to make up that 41,000 plus the 15.
mhm.
Yes, but it's, again, it's like if we take this to 0.
Something's
Why
not
did-
adding right.
Why didn't that work?
Mm.
No, it should be, why is that not? It's probably the calculation here, I'll have to work on that. That should have changed something.
Well, changed it there.
Yeah.
Wait, why isn't it filling up? This is 0, it's changing that, so why isn't it changing the percentage?
Change it from
Because you
05
put-
to point
Yeah, I was
00.
gonna say, because you added,
What?
oh, I was thinking that top line, the taxes,
No,
wasn't included in
it's-
that.
What am I summing here? I'm summing that.
F 32
that.
and F 49, where's F 49?
Oh,
Why am I not summing that? Hold on.
49 is down in the bottom, the
No, I know.
expenses.
It's, okay, so where am I summing this from? That,
Just
you're
those
missing
2.
one. You
Am I
need that
missing
other
one?
one.
Yeah, you're missing it.
The
What am I
fif-
missing?
You're only doing the 2 expenses. You aren't including the income. That 689
Yeah.
includes 49 and 32.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It doesn't include your,
The one
you
above.
haven't calculated
Oh,
in
good to
your,
me.
your
Oh,
income,
I'm-
your revenues.
I'm minusing my income, right? Is that correct?
I don't think it's even in there. You're just summing those 2 bottom ones, but that's okay,
Well, no,
right?
because he's figuring, that's the, he's thinking
Right,
if
'cause
the overall is 10%, and that may
overall
not be
spending.
accurate.
Okay, so what's going on? I made a mistake.
Because you have to have revenues, what is it, revenues minus
Right,
tax, revenues minus
yeah,
expenses?
it's these two.
To minus the,
minus that.
minus
Okay,
the
so I
revenue.
missed
And
that
you're
out.
missing
Hold
the
on a
line
sec.
next,
How did
yeah.
that get changed? All right, so, and it's minus this line.
Right, 17.
No.
No,
I'm doing
no, we
something wrong
Yeah,
there.
maybe it's the
deleted,
other way
wait, I
around.
think you deleted the sum,
No,
right?
it's, hang on.
You
Let's
want
all
me-
learn
do-
Excel.
No, do the sum and
It's
then
this.
And
minus,
then mine on
do the
the
sum and
outside
then
the
minus the 17. Outside of the
outside of
sum.
the parentheses.
Got it. So
Yeah.
it's, hang on.
Check.
I have to show you how to
Show,
do
show
this.
us, show,
Well,
show us
maybe-
what your,
okay,
your,
so this, and then
And then
it's
put S-
outside,
yeah,
and it's minus.
Outside minus.
Got it, thank
that
you.
one.
that one, yeah.
There you go.
But
No.
still,
Wait, but that's still wrong.
Wrong calculator.
Work it out, would
Yeah.
you? I'm doing something wrong.
What do we
What am-
got?
But
what
it's
am I
not-
doing wrong? No.
Wait,
hang
but
on.
Ian, it's not gonna be totally accurate, because you weren't including that 500 and whatever in taxes in that,
Oh,
that
right.
155.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you're gonna have to like
That's
add
true,
F
yes,
17
okay, that's
plus whatever that is.
Okay,
Add
let's
those
take
two.
it back and I will
Mhm.
fix that.
okay.
again, this is why then having reports out of Nemrick is a little easier to work with, because you know everything is there. Okay,
So let's go to the capital. We're gonna leave those alone for now.
yes, where are we going? Here we go. And you suggested taking that down to 15, okay, and so now we're at, I mean, police is a separate thing, so we're under 10.
So police are 10.
So what
and
changed? Because we were over 10.
We took the,
We took
$12,000 out of the.
Yeah.
Oh, the tech fund,
Yeah.
That was
we
our
took
buffer.
10 out
We
of
knew
it.
that it
Yeah,
was
we
gonna be
took
high.
that and DPW.
10 out of there, we took 12 out of the
Yeah.
DPW, we took 22,000 out.
So we took it basically a penny, a little less than a penny.
Yeah, we were in the town report last year, it was 4.6, I believe, but that probably, given how complicated everything was, that probably wasn't exactly accurate. That may have been a 5.4. No, like something higher, probably, because of.
Well, and our grand list was wrong.
Right, I know,
We lost what, how many
yeah,
hundreds of thousands off our grand list for the apartments?
yeah.
But our grand list
Okay.
should grow again this year.
Yeah, there was, well, I counted 6 new houses on my way in today and I'm
Really?
like, yes.
Well,
Yeah,
The fire station was,
no,
Apartments were
the
too
one
high.
behind it.
Blittersdorf.
Blittersdorf, was his on last year's?
No,
Or is
I
that
don't
on
think
this
so.
year's?
I think it's on this.
This year's?
this year's.
Well,
Yeah, because didn't we do the open house in June or
Yeah.
something like that?
Voted appropriations, that 10%, that was the organization's plus.
Plus the-
Plus ours, yes.
Can you just put that at 6% just for a second? So
I was gonna
Well,
ask to do the
it's-
same thing and the personnel.
but it's a sum of this and this.
Oh,
So that's why we would have to change, essentially, we'd have to go into here
Oh,
and like.
No,
like,
no,
Well,
Oh,
here,
okay.
well, here, so if I take that out. So that's
Okay.
it, so yeah, hang on, if I can just figure out,
what'd you take out there?
135.
well,
What did the library go? 50,000,
I think you want 100.
218 to
I know.
259, so 40 grand
40 grand.
approximately.
it's still
So
pretty big.
6% is $35,000.
So can you just, that 3,000,
Wait a minute, let him put it back so
Yeah,
he
you-
doesn't forget.
wow, our budget is great. Yes,
now go back to the one that showed support my taxes
okay,
summary. Can you change that from 3,339,536 to 3,239?
no, because it's a,
Okay, you
summary.
just can't. do
I mean,
that.
he can manually do it, but then he has to take
Well,
out.
I just
the-
wanted to see what it was gonna be from 9.66 to, I'm,
yeah. I mean, it is, I mean, we can play around, but it is what it is. I mean, what we have control over really is this, like that was up higher because we were
We
hoping
do,
to
we
get more.
don't.
Yeah,
The funds for the highway and the funds for the fire department are,
gonna pay me now, pay me
Right,
later.
that's
yes,
right.
so, yeah, any change we make,
Well, I'm-
and the whole idea of this is so
So
that
we
in
don't have
5
to
years or
bond.
in 10 years, you have the money sitting in there that you don't have to bond for, and it's
Yeah.
already there.
and you're not
Right.
paying interest
Yeah.
on
Well, look
it.
at our
And you
neighbors.
miss 1 year and you're then thrown off, which is that, well,
Yeah.
can we use that another year? Maybe not, or maybe we can.
Look at our neighbors to the west over here, 2 neighbors over. The Jens, you saw in the paper this week.
Mhm.
They're gonna rebond for their fire trucks they gotta buy from 1.75 to 1.2, because they're gonna buy 2 used ones. they found.
Okay,
But, because they got no money to buy fire trucks, and we've got ours, that brand new one sitting over has been paid for.
yes.
And they got 10% off because
They
they
don't
paid.
have capital funds. in
They don't have
towns.
capital funds, and they've talked to me about it. The mayor's talked to me
Blows
about
my
it.
mind.
He goes, how did you
Blows my
guys do
mind.
that? Yeah. And
How do you not have capital funds?
No,
A lot
They-
of towns,
because they're people-
Starksville does it, Starksville pays for they bond for every one of their trucks.
So
Yeah.
go back.
They
to
just
borrow
don't,
the
they
money.
don't just think future wise, they just think right now,
Wow.
you know, we
And
don't
so
want.
we're-
I
the
can't imagine
tax-
being in that
yeah.
position.
Well,
That would
we
be-
were.
We
Oh,
were.
really?
We just barely switched over like in the last 10 years.
No,
Oh,
it's
really?
been, no, we were.
Oh, no.
doing
We've
well.
had capital funds, but we just barely switched over. Our town trucks, we used to vote when I first started, we voted our town trucks from the floor.
Oh,
Yeah,
We
but
voted our fire trucks from the floor,
Oh, that's
and then
not
we
fun.
bonded for them.
my brother Buzzy
Interesting.
told me that you and your father and him started brought that up for
For the highway.
highway
for paving.
capital.
Yeah.
No, not for paving, for capital, to buy the equipment, have it, to start saving money for
Yeah.
equipment, when he was last.
I'd rather pay a little now than
Yes.
Yeah,
a
because
lot
what I'm
for
saying,
lot
but-
for 50
But it also,
years.
it also demonstrates that your town is long-term planning.
Right, Ian, go back to that support my point I was trying to make here
Yeah.
was, there's $100,000 in there, if you took that out of the bottom line. And I'm not saying we're going to, I don't think we should, we brought that to about a 5%, was 40,000 is the library. And two positions that we've all agreed that are now
We
paid, we need are paying money. As in our grant writer is paying dividends, and our community specialist
Yeah,
is, I think will pay dividends.
Yes.
It's, right now it's new broom.
yeah,
I think it'll pay dividends. Yeah, we could say, no, we're gonna go status quo, and library, you can't have an extra 40,000. I'd like to
That's
know,
not our.
and that's not our position. I'm just saying that was a big chunk of the appropriations, because if you look at that appropriation, the personnel is the largest one, those two new positions,
yes.
and
And
11%,
that's
10%.
why I like having this, because I think people
Yep.
are far more understanding of looking at a personnel line and knowing, especially if they know the person personally, if they know people from the town.
And they also
Public
know
Works
that health
or
insurance
Meredith
is
or
going
us
up,
or-
you
Yeah,
know.
Well, we can say to that, there's
yeah,
two new positions in that 14%.
Yeah.
We
And
didn't
there's a-
give a 14.5% raise.
And there's a
14.5%.
17% increase in health insurance costs.
And a almost 1% increase in the retirement cost.
And the
Yeah.
workers' comp insurance
Yeah.
and, you know,
For the personnel expenses, did we put in a 5% raise across the board
yeah.
into
We
that?
can, we can.
we
talk
need to
about
go
that.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to go through that.
We haven't set those, we'll do that in
Yeah, we'll
July
do-
after we get to.
No, but we need to put
We need
in,
to
we need to
budget.
talk about the budget.
Yeah. And do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that in executive session?
We'll have to do it in executive
Okay.
session.
Yeah.
Should we
Wanna
do
do
that
that
now in
today, or you wanna
executive
wait till
session
Monday?
on Monday?
I would do it now.
I would
just
do
so
it
we can
now,
just get
so
going.
that way we're not here until midnight on Monday.
I feel like
There's
we're
not,
I feel
it's
like
a,
we
it's a
will be
normal
anyway.
select board meeting, but I'm only
Right.
really putting on budget stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's nothing really that's of
Pressing.
the utmost importance at the moment.
Mhm.
We don't have any dog issues.
I don't think so. Okay,
Watch your tongue.
so there we are with that.
No, it's just horses now.
We've moved up.
Yeah. So I
We
think we'll-
moved to
we'll-
bigger and
we'll
better,
go-
is that what it
Bigger
is?
and-
Does someone want to make a motion to go into executive session to
Yes.
discuss?
Yeah.
I will make
personnel
a
budget?
motion to go into our executive session for 1 VSA section 313 to discuss personnel
Is
issues.
there a second to that?
Second,
A second, all those in favor of going in, or any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in
Can
favor?
I join?
Aye.
You may, and Chris Purley will join us.
Opposed? With Chris entering,
Yes.
okay, all opposed? Staying, okay, we are in.
Okay, thanks, Jimmy.
Bye, Jimmy.
Bye, Jimmy.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Okay.
and then
And
stop
then we're gonna
recording.
stop this, click.